Welcome to the first Drunken Boxing podcast of the new decade. Happy New Year to you all, and thank you all for supporting and listening to the Drunken Boxing podcast. It really means a lot to me. In today's episode, I have two guests joining me, Simon Lockett from Japan and Marc Mastrandrea from the USA, currently residing in Beijing. Simon Lockett has lived in Japan for the past 26 years. Originally from New Zealand, Simon was a professional skateboarder until the age of 29. It was skateboarding which took him to Japan, where he settled. While there, he studied under the highly skilled and renowned Xingyi and Bagua teacher, Feng Zhengbao, for 8 years, in which he fully learned his Bagua system. Simon is also a fully trained and qualified Sichuan chef and travels all over Asia and the West running workshops. More recently, he started to study yin-style Bagua Zhang under Xu Shixi through his close friend Marc Mastrandrea. Marc is originally from New York, and he is a qualified Chinese medicine practitioner who ran successful clinics in the USA. He started his Chinese martial arts studies in New York, initially under various teachers, including Novell Bell. However, in 2016, Marc decided to relocate to Beijing in order to further his studies with Xu Shixi in Bagua Zhang, as well as to further his knowledge and studies of Chinese medicine. Both Simon and Marc are both deeply dedicated to their practice. And more importantly, they are very close friends. And this is one of the lesser-known gifts these arts give us, friendships that last a lifetime. I sat down with them both while they were here in Beijing, spending time training with their teacher, Xu Shixi. We discussed many things about their training, their background, their philosophies. It was an interesting discussion with two guys that are quite passionate about their arts. So, let's get right into it. Okay, welcome guys. Simon, Marc.
Yay.
Marc round 2. We tried this actually the first time around. And
very first one you tried to do, right? We had all that.
Then we had some background noise that destroyed it. So, which is good though, because this time Simon's here from Japan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you guys. And well, I'll start with, I want to get some background. So maybe you start.
Mm-hmm. You start, Simon. Background just in martial arts.
Well, yeah, just your background. Who are you?
Well, yeah, so I'm originally from New Zealand, and but I've been living in Japan for 26 years. So originally, well, as I was young, I did like judo and I did karate, and I always like really wanted to get deeply into like martial arts. But
and this was in New Zealand.
This was in New Zealand, yeah. But I happened to become like a professional skateboarder, and during the time I was a professional skateboarder, it was just like kind of impossible to keep doing like martial arts, because it was the schedule was just like you're all over the place, But I always had a thing of like when I finish like skateboarding, I'm going straight into martial arts, So
what age did you start getting like deep into the skateboard?
I was pretty young, as I was about 8. Yeah, my brother gave me a skateboard when I was like 8. Yeah, and then I was sort of like I was doing judo at that time, and doing karate at that time, and skateboarding, and then it kind of like just started,
filtering
as I got better, at skateboarding, and then it sort of I ended up living in like I used to live in Wellington. I was born in Wellington, and then I was living in Auckland, and then I was living in Brisbane, and then I was living in Sydney, and then I ended up going to Tokyo. And I was supposed to do a year in Tokyo
for skateboarding,
and then go to the States. But I did like 1 year in Tokyo, and like loved it so much. They were like, because skateboarding was like taking off in Asia. Yeah, and Tokyo is like the main hub for in Asia. So they were like, do you want to do another year? And I was like, yeah.
Well, what were you doing there for a year?
So I was like, so basically they have like I was writing for a US company, and the US company has like a distributor like that distributes throughout Japan. And their sole job is like like wanting to like promote skateboarding more and whatnot throughout Japan. So I was there like on a contract where they basically have like the ASIJ, which is the Japan like Professional Skateboard Association, and they have a set of like demonstrations and tours that sort of follow the season through Japan. So it goes from like Okinawa in the winter. Right, you start down there, and then you end up like in Hokkaido in the summer, and that's sort of where your season ends. So I did like 7 years or whatnot of that.
That's quite intense, man.
Yeah. I won Japan Championship a couple of times, and yeah, like had my own pro model and
wow.
So I was a
I mean, I was a skateboarder when I was a teenager too, but obviously not to any level that we could write home about.
You can find your stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote for.
I've seen a bit of your stuff on YouTube, and it's
like
really
old
good
stuff. Like I wrote for like Draws and Capital and like DC Shoes and like 4-Star Clothing and like
And what year was it that you went to Japan the first time?
I went to Japan in '95. was the first time. Like, so actually, when the gas bombings happened,
Yeah, sarin gas.
the sarin gas bombings happened. Those gas bombings stopped me from catching. I went for a 3-week tour before I lived in Japan for skateboarding, and those gas bombings stopped me from going back to Australia, and I had to sleep in Narita Airport for 24 hours on the floor. Yeah, because of the gas bombings. Wow. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy because I was in the Tohoku earthquake as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've been like the two like major incidents.
You've checked off terrorist attack, you've checked off earthquake, next you need tsunami, nuclear fallout. You can do the nuclear fallout.
You've kind of done that one already.
Yeah, so I've done that one, so I'm doing alright. I'm still here.
Bucket list.
Yeah,
but this is more like a kick the bucket list.
Survive this, death, you can't get me, you know.
So I was like, after skateboarding, I was super beaten up, like I wasn't that old.
Injuries.
Yeah, I was like 20, 27, 28, something like that, and I was just like super beaten up, and I was doing like Jeet Kune Do, and that was okay.
In Japan?
In Japan.
Okay, is it big?
Yeah, it's big. It is big in Japan. Yeah. There's one guy. The one guy, I forgot his name now because it was so long ago. But we're talking like a long time ago now. But there's this one guy who was who trained down in Santo for like years, and he was
Japanese
guy,
okay.
And he was teaching in like a place called where was he? He was if anybody in Japan knows who I'm talking about, Takatama. He was in a place called Takatama, and so I went and trained there for a little bit, and it was like he was pretty good, like they had a lot of like sparring and a lot of like hands-on like 2-man stuff and stuff like that. So it was good like that, but I was like kind of beaten up as well. So I was kind of like at that stage was like, oh man, I really want to
fix your body.
fix my body and heal stuff. And then one of my bros who was there, who was training, was saying, oh, look, there's this dude who does like Guangping Yang Tai Chi, who used to study under Xu Zhang, and who's out. Don't know if you've ever seen on YouTube the long spear form by Xu Zhang. Like he was amazing. And this guy studied under him for years. So I went and studied there.
Japanese guy also?
No, he's an American guy from San Francisco.
Oh, and he lives in Japan. He's
lived in Asia for like 4 years. He lived in Hong Kong and was all through the Hong
Ghost
Kong
of Don Draeger
movies and yeah. So he was my first teacher, but when I was doing he taught Bagua as well, right? But not really. Not like Bagua is the whole system. Like he just had a bit of Bagua of what he did.
So you learned something, and he's teaching whatever he learned.
And then he was sort of like
Could you identify what Bagua he was doing? Did he know?
Not really. No, I don't really know. When I'm looking at, I was just like, it was.
He's really a Tai Chi guy.
He's really a Tai Chi guy, but he only taught 3 palm changes. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. And he's just like, well, where it first started was just like, off the 3 palm changes, and that's what he taught because that's what Zhang had taught him.
Okay.
So it was kind of cool. Like it wasn't bad stuff. Especially all the opening exercises and winding exercises were kind of cool. Like I still do a lot of them today.
Yeah.
But from there, I was kind of like, Bagua is like really. Like
something
me,
piqued your interest.
I think it's just because I've always been like a sports dude. Like I played like soccer and rugby, and I just the whole concept of just moving and circling, twisting, and sparring on that with the evasive just sort of like worked for me.
Yeah.
So that's when I found like Feng.
Okay.
And then from there it's just like Feng the whole way through. Like I actually it's kind of interesting because Feng had like the main.
Well, before, I mean, some people won't know who Feng is that you're referring to.
Oh, okay. So he's teaches like swimming, dragon, Bagua. Yeah, he's from Shanghai. He got like a cultural exchange. He got sent to Japan on like a cultural friendship exchange. They used to have those deals going on where they'd send like someone from Japan would go and vice versa. And he ended up in Japan, taught like types of riot police and military and stuff like that, and then also like ended up starting his own school in Japan and continuing teaching from there.
Do you know what year he went to Japan?
I'm not sure on the exact year that he went to Japan. I'm not sure.
So who we're talking about is Feng Zhengbao.
Yep.
And if people listening want to look him up, you should. I'll put some links in the show notes of Feng Zhengbao. I mean, anybody who's involved in Xingyi and Bagua, if they don't know who Feng Zhengbao is, they've not been looking out much, but I mean he's pretty well known as a highly skilled practitioner of both the arts. I remember the first time I saw him, just a video clip of him, and I didn't know who he was, and what just came across was this power.
Yeah, he's powerful.
Yeah.
He to this day is the most powerful martial artist I've ever met.
Yeah,
but
I
that
can believe
guy
it.
was a bear, man.
You had a friend of yours who was a pro boxer.
Yeah.
You said you shook his hand once.
Well, one of my friends, a guy called Christian Yomez, Yuji Gomez is what his boxing name is in Japan, and he was like the all-time knockout champion in Japanese like boxing history and lightweight history, like 35 fights, 35 knockouts, and this guy was like. He just had the shenfa like without even having to develop it. He was just sort of born. But this
like
guy
Mini
was
Tyson.
Mini Tyson.
Fight.
You watch his fights. He literally knocked dudes across the.
Yeah.
Like literally knocked dudes out across the ring.
The hair
like, off
shakes
their feet,
as they're flying backwards. You're like, oh my god!
Like,
you just saw a soul leave his body through his eyes. Like
he was my boxing coach. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the whole story about how me and Guy and that all started training. But anyway, but he one time we met him at my hometown's like train station and. I was like, oh, this is my Bagua teacher, and this guy shook his hand, and when we left, he just turned straight around and was like, bro, like that dude is fucking strong. just put my hand straight, and this guy he's strong, man. This guy is strong. But he was strong and he was powerful. And
what styles did he train? He trained like 3 or 4 actually, right?
Yeah.
Feng.
He did the 6 harmonies.
He did 6 harmonies.
He did Xini Liuhe, I know that. He also did other Xini, and then he did Bagua.
And then he did Shuai Jiao too. He trained with a Shuai Jiao teacher.
And
I mean, my teacher knows him. They know each other from way before.
From way before.
But I mean, he's been in Japan for
a long time.
It's almost like he's Japanese.
And it's like he's Japan.
Does he teach in Japanese?
Yeah, he does. He teaches in Japanese, but like one of the guys who I ended up training with, as the story goes on later, but one of the guys that I ended up training is a guy called Paul, who he'd studied in Shanghai in the 70s, and then he moved to Japan, and then he ended up finding Feng.
Okay.
And he was like his Mandarin is like really really good.
Sorry, carry on talking.
Yeah, so he was like
he
was
speaks Shanghainese, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, if he's from Shanghai, they speak Shanghai dialect, but they obviously learn Mandarin too. So
yeah.
So he was he was sort of under. Like Feng's setup was funny because you had the official school setup, with the sort of Japanese way, and then you had the kind of the bros, you know what I mean? Yeah. And Paul was like his dude, because his Mandarin was so good and stuff like that. So they would for example, when we were doing like all this, the 64 like sparring patterns and all that sort of stuff, like they'd have the book, all in Mandarin and stuff like that, and him and Paul would be sussing it out, right. And then Paul's Japanese is really good too. So Feng's Japanese was good, but it wasn't like as good as. So he would sort of put it across. Yeah, so that's sort of how it worked, like that. So he basically, would pretty much teach in Japanese, but whenever it got to something that got he'd be like, Paul, yeah, and then sort of Paul would take this. So that's sort of
nice.
But I
how did you meet Feng?
So how I met him was I got put onto him, and then I went down there, and. Was he far from you? He was like where he was about an hour and 45 minutes, like to a couple of hours away, almost. Probably door to door, you'd be talking about a couple of hours, like on the train, like an hour and a half. So one day, I was supposed to go to the Taiji class, and
doing your Guangping.
doing Guangping, and then my wife was something happened. My wife was supposed to like take care of my daughter and all sorts of stuff. She got sick, and then so I was like, okay, well, I can't go to training today, and it was kind of a bit rainy anyway. And then I was like, I've got time, my daughter wants to go out or whatever. I might just go down, have a look at that Feng place, and then sort of take my daughter, somewhere, went down, and then just. Went to class, and then he was just like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Oh," we were just chatting about like still living. How long you been in Japan? What have you been doing? Just talking. I really want to learn Bagua. He's like, "Okay, come on." So, I went back home, and then my wife called up the main office, which she had this guy called Kitamura called him up, and then was like, "Oh, he wants to study," and then from what happened from there was. He ended up calling my wife back, and then he ended up saying, he was like, "Oh, look, there's a place right near you that I teach like a bunch of old ladies, Sun style Taiji, because he taught Sun style,
right? Yeah, that's it.
And so he said, look, Dave said, you're okay to come along. Like, do you want to learn Bagua? If you want to learn Bagua, you can come along.
On those days?
Yeah, I'll teach you Bagua only.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I ended up doing 7 years down there. He would come in, and there were this group of ladies, and he'd be like, oh yeah, how's it? How you doing? Yeah, and he'd come over, yeah, and then he'd just be like, oh yeah, okay, so do listen to that, and this, and that. Okay, and they'd just start, and then he'd just be like, Bagua! and I learned, and that's where, and then finally it got to a stage where he was like, oh, I want you to come down to the main place on Saturdays because I want you to train more with Paul, and because at the time I didn't speak any Mandarin, like my Japanese was okay, but now I speak more, but so he's like, I want you to come down and we can start clearing stuff up. But I did the Chinanda, and I did the basic 5 Xingyi lines.
Okay.
I did the 64 sparring patterns, and I did the Bagua. I did
What was his system that he was teaching in terms
Well,
of
he had like you say the 64 sparring patterns, right? And then the Chinna came across the board with everybody. So the Chinna's got like 3 different sets of like 124
techniques.
Yeah, techniques per set, and they inter-reverse. So the 2-man sets, right?
Yeah, that's how you, like an uke, a guy learning and a guy teaching.
And then there was the 2-man conditioning. We had like a whole bunch of like 2-man conditioning you could do. Footwork drills, like all footwork drills and line drills. Every one of the 64 palms is broken down to line drills as well. So you did it
as it should be.
You did it lines, and then you did the 2-man form straight together, and then finally you put it on the circle.
Right.
So we would spend we'd be like, okay, this month we're going to do like this many, and we'd do the lines of the in the first week we'd do the lines of the moves that were that we're going to learn, and then once they cleaned up, we'd put the pattern together as in just facing each other straight on and do it, and then once that's settled, we'd put it on the circle,
Okay.
And then in the end you just in the last last part of the month, it wasn't really a month, like it was until it's done. Yeah. But it usually took about a month, because the guys that were doing it pretty seriously. Like there's a group of like 6 or 7 of us who were,
So what were his usual classes like? Were they full? I mean, did he have a lot of students?
He had a lot of students. He had like 300 students all up.
Wow.
But different areas.
Oh, okay.
Right, all over the place, and then he had his main...
Because I know the Japanese are crazy about Taiji.
Oh, yeah,
totally insane about it.
And the Xingyi too, man. The Xingyi,
really?
Yeah, because I think the Xingyi really, really blends well with stuff like Kyokushin.
Yeah, guys that are coming from that kind of...
And a lot of guys can take that leg technique that they get from Kyokushin and then go into like Xingyi and learn all that upper hand stuff and actually come out with something pretty serious. Solid. Yeah, you know what I mean? Solid. So...
every time we've trained in the park, you always see Tai Chi people in.
Yeah, it's always Tai
Chi people.
Well, I mean, the Japanese Wushu Federation is called the All Japan Taiji Chuan Wushu Federation.
Really? Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Oh, look at that. There you go, right there. Yeah. All Japan Wushu. Yeah, I mean, when we're there, there's some guys, too, that we watch, and like they'll have the Kyokushin in this corner of the park. And there's some guys who do Xingyi.
Yeah.
There'll be some guys who do... They're very much into, like, Chuantong Wushu.
They like it. I mean, there's a couple of things that stands about
it. We had, if we go back to, like, the training, right? So we were basically, if you would come in, we'd all stretch out, We'd do Qigong, and then after that, we'd go into, like, all of the winding, all of the different winding exercises, Then we'd get into all the straight line stepping, and we'd do that. Then we'd do all the two-man drills together, all 2-man conditioning,
Nice.
Yeah, and then we'd basically get into like whatever palms you're working on. So if you're working on like the mother palms, or if you're working like the animals, or if you're working like the 9 palace gate, whatever you were doing at the time, then we'd all get together and we'd all do patterns.
Yeah.
And we'd go through and do the patterns, and then we would like have free sparring at the end, right? And we'd have like free sparring where basically you'd line up. And like say if there's 20 people in the class, you'd have like, 10 and 10, and just be like, right, a minute, and you guys have to spar and rotate.
Class.
Yeah, and then just rotate. Exactly like that. Yeah. But also we had when the main class finished, there would be, like after I'd been there for a while, one time I was leaving, and the guy, Paul, was like, oh, hey, you're busy? And like, no, oh, yeah, come back and hang out. And then we'd come back, and then, from there I started hanging out with the sort of like the core dudes, and we were doing like a lot more like like learning like
deeper stuff.
Deep stuff and how to fight, and and
I mean, I think to me, like, I mean, as the
we had the gun, the ones like the long spears, all
the weapons. I mean, for me, that's what you just mentioned about like that core group of people and they're getting together and talking, and to me that's like the real value of Chinese martial arts. It's like that, like family bond, social, and
that's where it's at.
Yeah, that's really where it's at.
Those are the people who really progress. Like progress. You know what I mean? Like,
and then still to this day, around my area, from just training in the park every day, I met this like Southern Mantis dude, Southern Mantis was pretty good.
Japanese guy too?
No, he's an Australian guy. And then another friend of mine, an English guy who's Wing Chun's legit. He learned from this like Cantonese dude in a garage in Donchester. Yeah, and bro, like
he's laughing at the name.
We used to call him the longest hands in the East. He's like 7 foot tall, the longest arms, so. But
all these people you would never know of, right? Like going back to what we were saying.
And then there was Guy,
exactly.
Then there was Guy who was the pro fighter, and Yuji who was the pro fighter, and like we were all training together. There's my friend Ben, who's did one thing.
That guy, I mean, you met all these people.
We would all get together in the park and just like
so cool, man.
Mix it up. That's really
so cool.
Yeah.
And is Feng still teaching today?
No, he's completely retired.
Oh, okay. So what does he do?
Well, nothing. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah. So he's just completely.
How old is he now? He must be over 70.
Yeah.
So I think he's a few years older than my teacher.
I mean, he was very very open, teaching wise.
Yeah.
Very, very friendly and very, very supportive, teaching wise and stuff like that. But he was very, very personal. There was still a lot of stuff that even people who were close to him for years and years and years, didn't really know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he maybe just like to keep it like that, a little bit.
Maybe,
like two people type of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of fair enough.
Is he still in Japan?
I mean, another thing you got to remember is that he is, he in the time that he came and stuff like that, like you are like Chinese in Japan, just the same as a few Japanese in China, like you know what I mean? Like there's some things that you don't go around announcing, and
no, totally.
So I think that could.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, and he goes. I think he's back and forth.
Do you think he's wanting to be here more, back home?
Does he call it home? I think he does. He really does like Japan. Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
so he's used to it.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. He loves China. He always loved going back and stuff like that. But I think he said got a sort of had quite a core here, like there. So not here. So he would just that's where he felt like at that particular time.
Sometimes you just get used to being in a place,
right?
I mean, that's the thing with me too. Here,
I've been here for so long, right?
Yeah, Japan, 26 years.
Yeah, for you too.
New Zealand.
Go back to New Zealand. I'm like, okay, like I love it, but like it's not really home.
It is. You get that feeling, man. It's like, okay, well, I'm used to it here.
Yeah.
So okay, so before we get into how you two got together, let's get a bit of your background.
All right, I'll give you a brief background. I started studying martial arts at 4 years old because my mom could not find a ballet school to put me into. She had this obsession with this.
Oh, poor you!
Yeah, poor me. She had this obsession.
That's all making sense.
Now it makes sense why I'm so fucking weird, right? Like, she had this idea that, and it's not wrong, that ballet increases ambidextrousness in children. I was her first child, so she's like, "What can I do to make my child ambidextrous and very sports associated in ways?"
Double nunchucks. Did she ever think about
that? And nunchucks on your toes. And she just my mom was not a sports person. My dad was. My dad, for example, had he not had some problems in his early life, would have been in the NBA, and he was that good. Okay. When I was young. And my dad ended up as a janitor at this like local YMCA style program, and they used to have like professional basketball players or college stars come down and play basketball and sign autographs for the kids. And so my dad would open up the gym early because my dad was into karate and he'd do all these things. He had a gym in the house, always like everything was like, it wasn't ever new. It was like always wrought iron, like pumping iron, like, and he wasn't a big guy, but he was always like physical, right? So like I kind of got that physical culture from him, and so I remember going to watch him. Like he'd invite you. Oh, so and so's gonna come down. There's a star, Vin Baker. He was like an NBA player.
I know.
He's gonna come down. He's gonna do this. Just before Vin Baker came out of the NBA, and he's gonna come down. He's gonna shoot around. Da 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 da. And I was like, oh, you want to come? I don't know who he is at the time. I'm 9 years old. But I'm like, okay, I'll go. And so I go down. He opens up the court, and Vin Baker was like, hey, you want to shoot around, warm up with me? And I was like, and there was another guy from like University of Rhode Island. I think his name was like Tyson Wheeler. He was another one. A couple people made the NBA. And they'd be like, hey, you want to shoot around warm? My dad would be like, all right, he'd put down the broom. And I would sit there and watch my dad beat these dudes. And my dad was in his 40s, and some of these guys were in their 30s and 20s and like early 20s. And my dad would like, it wasn't like close. Like my dad would shoot 3-point. My dad's 5'9", 5'9". These guys were like over 6 feet.
Yeah.
And they would be like, who are you? You know, like
when did John Stockton
become a janitor? That's what they would call him. They would call him John Stockton.
It sounds like that.
They'd be like, geez, Stockton, why are you a janitor? Why aren't you? And he'd be like, well, you know, and he'd just go off and push the broom and do his things. But so that kind of imbued this cultural, this physical culture in me. And then I started off in Goju-Ryu Karate with a guy who trained under Chuck Merriman, who was the USA Olympic team.
And this was instead of ballet.
This was instead of ballet. I lucked out, right? Maybe ballet lucked out. I might have ruined the sport. So there was that. And then after that, I was hooked, man. That was like in the 80s, and Ninja Turtles came out, and all these martial arts movies, and you're a little kid, and you're like, I want to do this and that. And my family was very poor. So I was really too young for the Goju-Ryu school. So eventually, my dad's friend was like, everybody else in the class like 9, your kid's 4. There's no young kids classes, you know. So they were like, all right. So I left the school, and my parents started having more kids, and they just couldn't afford to put me in a martial arts school. So I would take like the introductory class for, $50 and a free gi, and I was like jump around from school to school. So I studied some Tang Sudo and some karate and some all these different things. And finally I was like, I don't want to do anything else with martial arts. So eventually...
You wanted to stop martial arts?
Oh, no, I didn't want to do anything else, but because they would be like, why don't you go play soccer? Why don't you go play football?
You were just hooked on martial arts.
I was hooked on it, but like they never had the money for it, right? Like I did wrestling for a little while when I was in elementary school. And my very first year, I did great. I was in 3rd grade, and they added me to this. They put me in the city wrestling team, and my very first year, I came in 2nd in the city or in the town championships with full blown pneumonia. And like, because they took me to the doctor and I like barely could breathe, and the doctor's like, you should go home and rest. I was like, no, I've got a wrestling championship to go to. And like, my mom was like, all right, if he wants to go. The only reason I didn't win is because I was wheezing. I was like, and so like this guy who had like been wrestling since he was in kindergarten beat me. But like, other than that, I came in 2nd place. So
nice.
I just kept pushing myself. And then eventually, finally, when I got to high school, I dropped out of all those sports. I said, I don't want to do anything but martial arts. So, and particularly, I wanted to get into like Chinese martial arts because I had been reading books on Chinese martial arts, and I had studied Japanese ones and I'd studied Western wrestling and things, but it was always a draw, right? And so, there's like a depth to it. Well, and while there were other things, there was like this intangible fluidity. You know what I mean? That like, like you can see through it, and you're like, but this could be this. I have a feeling this is really this. But nobody I see is actually doing it like that. But I really feel like...
You mean Chinese martial arts?
Chinese martial arts.
Yeah, there's something,
I mean?
there's something there.
Yeah.
That even if you don't understand it, like when you're younger, you look at it like there's something special there.
Yeah. I think what got me with that was like, with skateboarding, because it's so technical. And how you got to learn how to use your feet, and pop the board and flip it and land on this.
Do you want to hear something that's ridiculous?
Yeah. That's what kind of... Yeah.
I remember at one of my earlier Chinese martial arts schools when a crew of skateboarders joined. And they were just... phenomenal.
Yeah, killing it. Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt it
because they can take a beating.
And they can take a beating.
They're used to learning like
they had natural coordination. They were just they were really good.
Skateboarders are pretty fearless.
I think if you take if I'm taking about
skateboarding, though, like if you think about
nothing is harder than concrete, right?
Standing at top of a 30-stair handrail, and you're like, okay, I'm going to roll up on my piece of wood with my 4 wheels and my trucks. I'm going to tap my tail. I'm going to, with the sandpaper that's on the top of the board, I'm going to flip my foot on this angle. The board's going to do a full flip. I'm going to land on the front truck on a 45-degree angle. I'm going to balance all the way down this 30-stair handrail. And just before I come out, I'm going to pop off the nose and use my back foot to flip it this way. And he'll flip once. And if I don't, I'm going to hospital for 8 months.
Right? There's few things you're just scared of after that, right? Like, Jesus.
It's like parkour on ice.
But that's how I looked at like Chinese Kung Fu, because it is technical. Yeah. But to me, it made sense because I'm like, no, you can make this work, and it can be super effective if you get it right. But you're going to have to take the time. Yeah. And like, if you look at skateboarding, like just to learn to ollie and nollie and, move all the various ways, it's going to take you like 6-7 years of one, eating it, but two, dedicating yourself to it to really master it, and I think that's what attracted me to it. Whereas some other things that might be a little bit more straightforward is fine, but it's kind of like
But I think when what we're talking about is like potential, right?
There's a lot of potential buried in it, right? And because you look at all these specific things, and you look at there's something too about, we're always talking about this, the Shenfa. There's something about Chinese Kung Fu Shenfa that's like, I mean, there are other great martial arts out there, but there's something about Chinese Kung Fu Shenfa that's like, okay, this is another category, another refinement. I think that it's funny as it is, the semantics of the Shenfa become the holdback, of a lot of it, because people are like, no, but your shoulder is lifted here, and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, man, shut the fuck up.
That's if you take the Shenfa and disconnect it from the result of using it. So if you're just looking at it for what it is, you get stuck in that bubble.
Performance, and I think that's what's really held Chinese martial arts back. At the same time, when I finally went to school years later and became a doctor, a physician in Chinese medicine, I feel like that's the same thing with Chinese medicine.
But any refined practice.
Right?
It becomes dogmatic.
Can be dogmatic.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh no, this... And I think that it happens in cultures where they've had this idea of refinement for so long, and steps to who's teacher, and this is the traditional or the accepted standard of how we do this.
Well, it's Confucian.
It's Confucian, and we have a lot of that here in Chinese culture, right? So we
you don't question it.
Into that. Yes.
If you don't understand it, you don't ask. If you don't feel it, you don't try.
And thankfully, it was actually one of the big people who opened my eyes to a lot of this. Even though I saw it, but I wasn't finding anybody else who was questioning it as much as I did. It was my Chinese medical teacher, my acupuncture teacher, Jeffrey Yuan. I actually went to his. So he's a very well known in the West Chinese medical scholar. He was a Taoist priest. His grandfather was born in Huashan in the 1880s, and he grew up in a Taoist monastery, like in the old way. And he practiced the Hua Fist. It was called Wu Xingquan, and he fought many fights, and he fought some tournaments or some fights to the death. Like
his grandfather
was very well known. He lived to like 108 or 109 years old, and so Jeffrey, it was his adopted grandfather, and so Jeffrey was brought up in this idea under his grandfather, and then also his grandfather's friend, who was actually a Taijian, was actually a eunuch physician in Gugong at the Taiping Academy, taught him the imperial herbal medicine. So when Jeffrey taught us like such a very like Biao Jun idea, like the standard idea of Confucian idea of medicine, he was very fluid and Taoist about it, and so it really kind of made me feel more comfortable with what many people looked at as me as a rebel in like Chinese martial arts. I was like, no, wait, this guy's far more understands the culture. He's Chinese. He speaks the language. His grandfather was born in the Qing dynasty. Like this guy knows what's up.
Well, I think this kind of bridges what he's saying. Like, what Simon was saying, like skateboarding. It's so hard. You're gonna do 7 years of Jeet Kune Do. It's like Chinese martial arts.
Exactly.
You got to get through those basics and drill them for so long.
And as far as like the Shenfa
and then you get freedom.
As far as the Shenfa goes, right, is that in skateboarding, unlike a lot of the ways that Chinese martial arts are taught these days, is that there's consequences for not getting it right.
Yes.
Proper consequences.
Yes.
Like eating soup for the next 3 months.
I've broken like 34, 35 bones. Like not talking about fractures, like and snaps and concussions, and so it's like, so that makes you like, it's not about like, oh, your shoulder's too high. Oh it's about the total connectivity of what you're doing.
Yeah, cause and effect.
Exactly. And so so I would find like, and for me, luckily, Feng was a very detailed but very simplistic teacher as well. Like if you started like, oh, is that because he just shut the fuck up? Like, you need that, right? You need that.
But isn't that how? I mean, I found that's how all the older generations were.
Yes.
It's and like let's just leave all that philosophical stuff. Let's not just do the practice. Sweat.
Exactly.
In Chinese medicine, Jeffrey was very nice, but. Sometimes we take the train home together because we live in the same direction. And he shared it was very cool because a lot of people in Chinese medicine, they get like obsessed with, well, what does it say in the Huangdi Neijing? What does it say in the Yale Emperor's Canon? Well, this says this and da-da-da-da. And one day we had an issue in school. There was an argument between myself and another teacher over things because this person...
You mean Chinese medical school?
Because in med school, because this person was like, if it doesn't do this and the Beijing doesn't say this and da-da-da, then you're not... But it was like, that she didn't understand the spirit of the book. She was like, this is the rule, and this is the rule, and this is the rule, and nothing else. And it was very much to, like, basically pull people and polarize people under this idea and isolate them. You know what I mean? And I finally, Jeffrey like came and met me about the issue. We were talking about it, and he goes, dude, this is just a trail guide. What you see in front of you and what you have to deal with in front of you is reality. And if your trail guide doesn't match the reality of the trail you're on, put it to the side. And figure out what works. It always take reality as real, and a trail guide is only something that maybe at that time worked because things were different. And that's what I love about, for example, when I finally met Xu Shixi here in Beijing, he was very much like, he's like, you know, there wasn't this, hold this guard posture out like this when you fight an eye. He was like, hands up, move, step around, widen your feet, why don't you have footwork? Why don't you have this and that? And so finally when I met Xu, it was really nice because it was a person who had grown up in traditional China, but was like, and so had the understandings of what the culture was, but was like, dude, I used to fight. Like, this is how you do this.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by the older generation. And it doesn't mean all of them even. Because some of them don't have that too.
Yeah.
But my teacher's got this saying that he's asked me to translate and he's never remembered the full translation. So he gets parts of it. So like somebody will come and learn a technique and my teacher will show them, okay, this angle, this is the method. And the guy will be like, but should I have my elbows here or my elbows here? And my teacher's like, how power? How good? And I'm like, what he's trying to tell you is the way you can do it and generate more power, that's the way you should do it.
Exactly.
You know? Feng used to say, the way I fight is not the way you fight because like we're totally different in the way we're built and everything. Right. So you got to like, like I found it as well with the Chinese cooking as well because I'm a chef in like right. So like a lot of people will ask me about like recipes. Right, I say, how about this recipe or that recipe or this recipe or this recipe? But basically you've got like the 26 flavors, in Chuanzai, and you learn the flavors. Yeah, you learn the Sichuan style. And you learn I'm using the Japanese, but you use the you learn all the flavor bases, and how to make those flavors and then you learn what they can be used with and what they can't be used with. And like which range of like vegetables and meats or whatever that they go over, and then you make whatever you want from there. So you do have recipes and staples of, but that's not the focus of what you're doing. Is the base, not the
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, we're here saying that people should freely express their arts and apply them as they feel based on reality and logic and consequence and testing and blah. But the other side of that is that, to get to that point, you have to have correct teaching and a long time doing it that way. So there are certain fundamentals that should be done. And that's the other side that I find people breaking today.
Well, people don't have time, that nobody's got time.
Either that or they've learned incorrectly.
They don't want to go back.
Or they haven't actually learned fully, but they're already on that, no, now it's time to like freedom. And then that's the other side. So you got two sides of it that can be wrong.
Or what if my straight punch works? What's the big deal? Well, like that's one of the things you find. Like I found out with some of my old teachers. Like, well, that's not really this because I can beat you. Well, just because you can beat somebody doesn't mean it's really that either. Like maybe somebody.
Tyson can beat most people.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Does it mean that that's still not really Xingyi? If Tyson suddenly says, "Oh, what I'm doing is Bagua," and he can punch you in the face, does it really mean he's Bagua? Yeah. And I think this is silly because like I remember coming to China at some point in training, and then somebody back in the States being like, "Well, I'm going to test that." And I'm like, I just spent 2 weeks here studying a couple of, this when I first came, studying a couple of techniques. I got to go and refine them for months or years, well, I don't know if this can't stand up to the test that we're going to do, then it's bullshit. Like,
it's like bullshit. Challenging like Tyson to a hands tied behind your back, like low kicking competition, and then telling him he can't box.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous. But I mean, that's it. And
well, we kind of jumped a bit around. You said that you decided in high school that you wanted, like, that's it, you wanted to do Chinese martial arts. So I went off track.
So I was doing Chinese martial arts. So I dropped out of my swim team and I got into Chinese martial arts. And I found a guy who was teaching Bagua, quote unquote. And it was really like Qigong with like Ding Shi, like set palms around a circle and then everything else was made up.
Do we want to name names? No.
Nah, leave it off. He was a nice guy, but he wasn't like the guy I would continue to train with. But I went and studied with this teacher who taught some interesting Qigong. Unfortunately, that whole thing was very culty, so I finally left. And
no names again.
No names again. And then, and I left, and then I went. I ended up moving, so I went to college, and I met a guy named John Dufresne who trained in China on and off for 11 years doing traditional Chinese wushu. Sorry, not traditional, like the Shendai, the modern wushu.
Sport
in
wushu.
Shushahai, yeah. Like there's pictures of him and Wu Bin, him and Jet Li, like together. This is in the 80s.
So before we carry on, did we say where this was?
This was in. So I was about at the time, because I've lived in a lot of places. I was living in a place about 100 miles south of Boston and north of New York in a place called New London, Connecticut. I've lived in New York. I've lived all over the place. I've lived in the Bahamas. I've lived everywhere. And so I was traveling an hour and a half, 4 days a week
to this John Dufresne.
To John Dufresne to train with him. And he was like all psyched because Wu Bin had tapped him to become a coach with the intention of 2008 being the first Olympic wushu tournaments. But when that fell through due to everything that happened.
Fall out? I'm not talking about the Olympic movement, but in the States.
So what happened was, what I fell out because John took a different path in life when he from teaching in a school or starting a school and getting everything going when he realized it wasn't going to become a sport. Because it wasn't for him. It didn't have the network and the management and everything. And John was a businessman. And so he wanted to he was very good.
So he saw an opportunity if it became Olympic.
Yeah, and when it didn't, he just kind of went somewhere else. And I was like, you know what? I'm in college. I'm not gonna leave college to try to get something going and prop something up. This doesn't make sense. I have a goal in mind.
But in all honesty, I mean, let me butt in here.
Yeah. You would know more about the
It's probably the best thing that ever happened to you.
I knew it. I definitely knew it because I had a friend of mine, right?
Apart from Belly.
Second best thing that ever happened to you.
Because I had a friend of mine who left the New London area and moved up to Leominster, Massachusetts, and everything fell through for him. And then he finally came back, and then he went on to college, and then this and that, and it was it's a learning experience. He first trained with John, and then after John kind of went a separate way, he trained with one of John's old students who trained in. He didn't really do the modern wushu stuff. He trained the traditional because John was from a group of people there's this weird sphere of kung fu in Lexington, Kentucky that kind of spheres around this man named John Ing. Sometimes people call him Wing Lok Ing. He came from Guangdong or Hong Kong, and he teaches some sort of 6 harmonies family system that's got a bunch of stuff in it.
Isn't Kentucky where that whole Shaolin Do is from too?
And they're not a competing school, but they were a separate school that was actually from a man who was from China, and the Shaolin Do and the hairy wolf man Shaolin, that whole thing. And so they were very much in you could say competition, but it was pretty much argument. All right, Sinte, this is fucking bullshit, and this is really what kung fu is. But
But was that really kung fu?
Yeah, what John was training down there was really kung fu.
Okay.
With a guy named Wing Lok Ing, and this guy, or they call him John Ing, and he did a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that today what I see from them isn't so much what it seemed like back in the days.
Okay.
Back in the days, it was a lot of line drills and this and that, and he taught the traditional drunken boxing and all these different things. And actually, when Wu Bin did his national tour, when they first brought the Chinese wushu team around the United States, one of his stops was Lexington, Kentucky. And the story John told me was he stopped in Lexington because there was a large group there, and they could go and meet and do wushu, and they'd have a group. So they went and they did that, and John went to watch, and he goes, and so he was talking to Wu Bin, and Wu Bin said, "Oh, you do Chinese kung," or somebody, the translator was like, "Oh, you guys do Chinese kung fu?" And John was like, "Yeah, I do drunken boxing, this and this and that." And Wu Bin's like, "Oh, okay, let's see your form." So John busted it out, and then Wu Bin's like, "Oh, that's good." And he calls over the number one wushu demonstrator from Beijing who does the Shendai wushu drunk Zui Chen Taolu, right? And he busted out, and John's jaw hits the floor, and he's like, "Oh," and Wu Bin's like, "I like you, kid. You've got spunk. Why don't you come to Beijing?" And so he invites him. And so back in the 80s, he was the first foreigner to train. I think. Yeah, John was. So John Dufresne in Shushahai. Okay. And he was very, very good. But he was very much, and he'll tell you, he was very much about the performance.
All right.
It wasn't about the other things. He was a stunt double in a movie or.
I mean, that's a whole other path you can go on.
He went on that path, and he'll tell you he went on that path, and then. So that was that's how he got into it. So anyways, I trained with him for a little while, but I stayed in college. And then finally when I graduated, I knew I had a choice to go to Western medical school or Chinese medical school. I chose Chinese medical school because I had a number of family members who had gotten sick or died from iatrogenic, doctor-caused issues. And I was I'd always had a love of Chinese medicine, and it was weird. Ever since I was young, I used to read books on it. And a lot of martial arts books and things on Chinese medicine in them. So I was like, you know what? if I go into Western medicine, I don't know if I'll ever be able to pursue Chinese medicine because of the system. It'll just grind you to dust, and you'll have to pay off all these crazy student loans. You'll never get to that point, especially in the States. But if I go to Chinese medicine, if I decide I want to go to Western medicine one day, well, I can. You know, there's not like a system in place that's going to grind me to dust. So I'm going to do that first. And I went down and I checked out a couple of schools in New York. And I went and I sat in one night on this school. This guy was giving a presentation at this school called Swedish Institute. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go here. The website doesn't even seem very Asian. It's called Swedish Institute. I'm like, the hell?
What are you studying? Chinese medicine.
Chinese medicine at a place called
Swedish Institute.
Right? Like, and I was like, this doesn't even sound right. So I sit in, and in comes this
guy with meatballs.
Little dude, exactly. This little dude, this guy with meatballs from IKEA. He's like, hey, that's his furniture. And,
a wrench,
yes, exactly.
a packet of wood, and an instruction manual. Put that together.
But I'm a ballet student.
Yeah. This isn't what I'm about. Right? This isn't my specialty. And so he comes in and he stands in front of us and he starts talking. Turns out that's Jeffrey. And I was just floored. He starts talking about the idea of the shamanistic aspects in Chinese medicine, the uses of it, this and that. And it wasn't like the other schools where it was like, well, you can do this, and if you refer to a doctor, you can do that, and maybe here we're also seeing now in modern scientific uses to do this. He was like, in Chinese medicine, it was made as, as medicine. It wasn't called zhongyi, it was called yi, and it treated everything, and he started talking as matter of fact, and it was like, you could feel like this dude has done it. Yeah. Like he's been that dude who's treated these things, who's done these things. I was like, this is where I'm going. So I messaged the school and I was like, I want early acceptance. Like all my friends are going to med school, all get like early admissions. I need that. I need to know where I'm going next year. So I moved to New York. So I went to New York, and in the process I studied with that Qigong guy for a little while that I had left because everything turned into a cult. Then I kind of floated around for a little while, did some Kali. I really liked it, very much like Chinese martial arts. The Kali I studied under a guy named Dennis Ocampo. Dennis was phenomenal. And it was very much like Chinese martial arts and Western boxing together. And Dennis was one of the best I've ever seen at Kali. But then that kind of faded because the group fell apart. And then I studied a little while under some other people in New York. I fought in man-up stand-up. I had studied with Novellville for a little while.
How long were you studying with him for?
Yeah, I studied with him on and off, but I'd say directly for about a year and a half or two, I think. Okay. Maybe a little longer. But I studied with him after I graduated med school. So then what happened was I was trying to get a clinic going, and I was training with him, and he was making me his like number one fighter in his whole Musu man-up stand-up thing. And I was like the guy who's, if his other students lost to somebody, he'd put me in against them, and then I was like the cleaner, right? So like I'd go and so it was kind of like that. And he'd take me around it wasn't just in the ring, he'd take me around to other schools or other groups who were fighting, or people would come to New York, and then I have to spar them on a fucking tennis ball court.
Does he still have at that time, did he have a formal school?
He's never really had a formal school.
So he's just the guy that people knew of that was teaching.
Yeah. And he's got a lot.
And was that his full-time profession?
I guess you'd call it his profession. I guess there's no like specific specialization he has outside of martial arts. So, so that was that. But then we had a difference of opinion. I went my separate way, and he went his separate way. And I was also starting a clinic. I can't be training 4 or 5 days a week in New York and have a clinic in Connecticut because that's 100 miles difference, and I got to go back and forth. And
so that's where you opened your clinic.
I had some in New York City, but my business partners, unfortunately, weren't as dedicated to that as I was, so it fell through because they also had other clinics they were more dedicated to. So they were reallocating goods that I had bought and resources for the clinic to their other clinic. And I was like, this isn't working, guys. You guys are literally draining us of things, and you're not putting anything into this clinic. And it was because I was seeing more patients there than they were. So they were taking like supplies of needles and herbs, and they were taking to their other clinic that I had bought. And I was like, this doesn't work.
No.
So I went and started my own clinic in Connecticut because my little brother was there, and because my dad had left the family, I was the one who had to, raise my little brother. He's 17 years younger than me. Oh, so I invested in a clinic. I started my own clinic in Connecticut, and I raised him until he was 16. He lived with my mom, but I put all this money into him and everything, and was there and did the Boy Scouts and taught him martial arts, and we did a bunch of things together. And so I was like the father figure type of thing. And so I told him I would be there till I was 16. So I ran a clinic, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was the fastest growing and quite possibly the largest Chinese medical clinic on the East Coast.
Okay.
Every 3 days we'd see like 60 patients, between 40 and 60. And it was, we'd have 3 to 4 new patients a week, and we saw everything from patients with cancer to patients who needed to turn breech births to patients who would come in spraying blood. They had hemorrhaging and whatnot. We'd see patients who had just asthma, stress, psychological issues. We saw everything, and it got to the point where like the local hospital was referring us patients. So I didn't have time to like do stuff with Novell, and we were also because of our difference of opinion, it didn't make sense to keep doing things there, right? Because I've got something here, and then I had mentioned to him I wanted to go because he'd always said, "Oh, you know what? I don't think this system fits you. I think the system that Xu Shixi teaches would fit you better."
What was he teaching you before that?
The Sao Bagua. Well, Novell teaches a random spattering of things. So like his main thing that he does is Sao, but he also studied the Zhengrong Chao system with some people. He studied Qingyi Quan. He studied Taiji.
Sao?
Sao. It's a Yin style Bagua.
Okay.
And I think it comes through Yin Fu's son's lineage. They're very much into
what is this word
palm.
Sao?
Sao, it's the man's surname who basically goes from this man to whoever the teacher of Xu was. I'm not Xu, of Novell was, this guy Chen Xiaoping to Novell. I'll send you the characters.
Okay. Sao is not really is that Cantonese?
Sao Shengshong. I think he's from Shandong. I know. I don't know exactly. I have to look at the characters. I just remember.
But it's also Yin then.
It's also Yin. Yeah.
Okay.
I just remember that for years Novell would call it cow, and I was like, cow. What? And then I got here and I looked at the character.
It's the female cow is a Sao.
Right, exactly. So I was like, oh, Sao, okay. So that's when I realized, oh, it's called Sao system, but it's whatever. That's what it was referred to. Sao style Yin Bagua, or Novell used to call it cow style Yin Bagua. Mm-hmm. And but the Xu system, what Xu teaches fits me more, and I recognized that, but everybody was doing the Sao stuff. So I said, you know what, I'd like to go see him. And I decided that I would ask Novell on a whim for his contact information. And so I did, and he gave it to me. So I emailed Xu, and I got an email back that said, okay, I'm waiting for you.
In English you emailed
I emailed him in English just to see. His wife can understand written English. So she writes back, and I thought it was Xu. I didn't realize it was his wife. And so he emails me back, and he goes, okay, I'm waiting for you. So I bought a ticket like November 28th or 30th, 2013 to arrive in Beijing December 21st, 2013. I was like, I'm going. Like
on the winter solstice.
Yeah, on the winter solstice. And I spent the next 3 weeks in Beijing on the winter solstice, Christmas, New Year's, everything with him. Every single day we trained Bagua. Yeah. And we were out in that cold Tiantan. It was like negative 14 Celsius.
Temple of Heaven.
Blowing, and and it was just, and we did it, and we just had a real good connection. He was like, at the end of it, I went to leave. And I remember because students started coming to train with, they don't normally come in the winter, but they were like, there's this foreigner coming to train with Xu. Oh, you guys should come. He's really dedicated. And it was my first time being there. And so more and more students started showing up again. And when I left, I remember this Xu, we were at the bus stop, and it was my last day, and suddenly Xu starts crying. And he was like, really, because he's like a real strong guy, and he's happy, and he wants to do things, but he's also real tough. And he starts crying, and he looks at me, and at the time I didn't speak any Chinese, and I had a translator with me, and he's like, please come back. He's like, no one here takes this seriously. Like all these students you see are only here because you're here and they want to be where the foreigner is. He's like, no one is here every day. No one wants, he's like, you're the first student who in years who's ever asked me if they can train every day with me. Like, please come back. If I die, this dies with me. And he wouldn't even look at me. He was like crying, and he didn't want to say goodbye. He's like, I can't say goodbye. And he's like this, and he's like, turn away. I was like, sure. Grabbed his hands. I looked at the translator. I was like, I promise you, I will come back. Tell him that. Tell him I promise. Use the exact words I just said. And I remember the last thing I saw of him was him turning around and wiping his eyes and getting on the bus, and like he's sitting on the bus. This little old man who's actually like full of power, and he's like, what? I'm like, Jesus, like this means so much to him. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the translator. I was like, I will see you next year at this time. And he was like, okay. And I came back the next year, and she was happy. And then I came back 3 more times. And the last year I came back 3 times in 1 year, or twice in 1 year. And I finally said, sure, I'm going to move here. I'm going to give up everything I have in the States. I'm giving up my clinic, my way of making money. I'm laying off my employees. This is important to me. Chinese medicine is equally as important, but thankfully, due to Jeffrey Ewan, it was freely given. You know what I mean? And Jeffrey did a great job at freely explaining this stuff. So, but this I feel is in danger of being lost. I gotta give up what I'm doing. And so I came over, and well, before actually I moved there. So my second time coming over to China, to go back a little bit, Simon and I became friends via Novell's online. He had like a secret online forum that he added people to who he thought were like worthy of being in his forum. And
before getting into that, which year was that you came permanently?
I moved here in 2016.
Okay.
So I've been here for 3.5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So you decided in 2016, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it right.
I'm going to do it right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's and because he and I had talked a lot about this. I was like, there's no one else who can do what I can do, in the sense of like, not that they won't be a skilled martial artist, but they don't have the ability financially, flexibility wise. They're working, they have kids, they don't have the money to do this, whatever. I've got all of that. This is like made, like I'm the puzzle piece that fits this hole. Like, I got to do this, man. Like, I got to be that link in the bridge that completes it so it goes on to the future. And so we had been talking online, and the second time I came over to Asia, he was like, before I came over, he was like, bro, why don't you add us, like, you're training with Xu now? You were saying like.
So this was through the forum.
Through the forum. He started giving shout outs to me. I started giving shout outs to him because Novell could do a lot of videos. So I would shout out because Simon would always hit me up online. We'd talk. So I would give a shout out to Simon, and Simon would hit me back, yo, bro, and he'd send a video of their training, so we share things. It was great, and I was like, this guy's awesome. So he's like, you trained with Xu? He's like, what'd you tell me? Like, that was the only guy that Feng ever saw on the video?
The only guy that I'd showed Feng, who when he looked, I used to sit on the bus with him after training every night. And it was like, just me and him would take the bus, and it's like a 20-minute bus ride back to the station. So it'd be like my chance to be like, ask him this or show him this. So I'd always show him these dudes, like, yeah, sure, yeah.
Look at this guy.
And he'd be like, wow. Yeah,
no.
Fucking shit. Garbage. And then one night I showed him some shoes, and he's like,
不错, not bad.
Yeah, he's okay. Which means like this guy's nice.
Yeah.
So this guy's good. So he was like, yeah, whoa, dude, you should stop by, man. I've always wanted to learn that stuff. This guy met me with his daughter at the bus stop, and I was like, he doesn't know me. He brings his daughter along
here to China.
No, in Japan. He was like, this is what you got to do. He gave me the directions. We got to the airport.
Oh, so you guys met up first.
Yeah. But like, I was the fact that like he introduced. He wasn't like, get a hotel. He was like, you're staying at my house. And I was like, wow. He cooked me food the first night. Like, he introduced me to all of his students. I got right into his crew. We went out and trained for, his wife was like, where are you? We come out back filthy in like cake. And his wife, like, they have an agreement at home. We're like, he cooks and his wife does the clothes. I show up, she's like, I'm not doing the clothes when Mark's here. Like I'm doing like 2 or 3 pairs. We're going to do 2 training sessions a day. We'll do a morning training session. We'll break for lunch, or he's got to go teach a class. We'll go do an afternoon training session. That's double. If the first one's 3 hours in the morning, the one in the afternoon and evening is 6 hours.
We would just
take your t-shirt off and it stands up on its own.
Yeah, you just go like, get in that washing machine. And it just jogs over and like dives in.
And we felt it. And when I got to leave, he's like, bro, I feel like you're like the brother I've been missing my whole life. And I was like, I'm really starting to feel the same way. And he was like, I want to help you with this stuff for Xu. He's like, I have a feeling it's going to be a lot. And I was like, I do too, but I don't know how much. And he's like, well, I'm here to help you.
Yeah. And I called him up and I said,
pee real quick.
I said, dude,
you know where it is. It's the first door on the left.
First door on the left. Yeah.
I called him up and I said, look, man, like I've been thinking like a lot about this, and I don't know what you feel, but from what we've been talking about, I'm pretty sure you're going to agree. But I was like, I'm prepared to totally drop the Feng stuff for the time being, to make sure that this is preserved. And one of the reasons why I did that is because the Feng stuff like is preserved,
and there's quite a few guys.
There's quite a few guys, man, and there's like people that in videos and stuff like that. But outside of that, there's like his stuff's pretty much good. The Bagua, not so much, but I've been keeping that up myself, But the main thing was like, I said to Mark, I was like, well, look, like, do you really want to be the only other dude who's in like Xu's position? Where you're like, oh, who am I going to pass on to?
Right.
It's not easy to find someone with the right mix and the right temperament and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, I'm in Tokyo. I'm right there. I can fly back and forward quite easy. Yeah. And I said, dude, if you want me to, I'm prepared. Like I said, dude, I'm not trying to come for your spot or anything like that, like I'm just saying straight up, if you want to help preserve, this, I'm down for dropping all the Feng stuff to dedicate myself on
so
this
we all work
to help bring it back.
Nice.
So because we at some stage we're going to have to all get on the same page.
Yeah.
And I can always maintain the Feng stuff.
And eventually he'll teach it to me. Like that's our goal. Is like I've helped him learn the Xu stuff, and I've taught him a lot of it. And then eventually he'll teach me the Feng stuff, and then we'll be able to, back to where they were.
It's just the urgency of the now.
Right. Is there overlap that you found between the two?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's tons.
Massive.
I think the biggest difference, the only big difference that we always point to is there's like little things, but I think the biggest difference is Feng's Jibengong is Lu He Xinyi.
Yeah.
Xu's Jibengong is Bagua.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's particularly the Yin. So Yin style Bagua. A lot of the Jibengong is all the Shaolin base. And so a lot of times people mistake, because for years you had a lot of people in the West saying, that's not Bagua, that's Taiji, he made it up and he just did it. No.
What do you mean that's what?
There's a lot of people who will say that.
How would you get to that?
Exactly. I mean, that's like, you're counting, you're saying, you're counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, and somebody starts putting like C. I'm like, that's not a number, that was weird. And I was always one of the things I was seeing online, or you get into these really nasty, poisonous arguments online about there was a few people who would like try to discredit him, and she was not online, she doesn't have an online presence, and they were just like poisonously spitting darts, and I was like, do you even know him? And most of them don't. They was like from some teacher.
But don't you think this? I mean, I don't know the background. Do you think this has something to do with Novell?
Some of it does, but it comes from before that. Novell was talking to people who were saying things in his ear about Xu. And so when Novell, I know this sounds funny, but so when Novell never went back, Novell came to China twice. And he was only here for a matter of weeks each time. It was very short. And so he went away and he was never able to come back. And at first, if you read on the forums, he was like, I'm Xu's, lineage holder, presenter in the West, blah, 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 whatever.
I remember that. So
it
was Empty Flower back in the old one before it got shut down to
and
the
he'd
new
message
one.
people and he'd be like, Xu doesn't know you. I messaged him. Well, Xu doesn't know this guy by his English name. He doesn't know Novell by his English name. He calls Novell Mai Dan Lao. Or he calls him Lao Fei Ho. Yeah, he doesn't even know him by the English name.
Okay, so just for the listeners, Mai Dan Lao is McDonald's in Chinese.
Yeah, so
why does he call him McDonald's?
There's probably many reasons, but he calls him this, but so if you were to write Novell and be like, do you know Novell? He'd be like, huh? What? So if I'm like, do you know, he doesn't know a guy named Steven, he knows a guy named Steven. So
yeah, it's the same with me. If you go to my teacher and say, do you know Byron? He's going to who?
Yeah, exactly. So
Wei Long, he knows
So Novell was, so he will never know me as Mark. He's known me since the beginning as Wu Wei. That's always been my name.
Yeah.
And so when Novell would get on these forums and say this thing, he would be like, oh, he doesn't know you, I asked him, this is the copy of the email. Well, yeah, because he doesn't know Jacob. He knows, Jake. He knows whatever's, whatever. And also you have these Chinese people trying to use Chinesified English names that could be way off, even if the guy had a Chinese name.
But did Xu teach a lot of foreigners?
He taught quite a few because, so there was but nothing in depth. It was always like, you have a
course,
associated with something, and these people will come through. He's taught the military. He's taught, I think he's taught police. He's taught, he taught the KGB. So I have a number of photographs of, there were some people associated with Putin who were private security of Putin who came in and they
they're not called the KGB.
Yeah, they're called something else, right? But this would have been back in the early 2000s when and they came here. This guy named Misha. And he came here, and apparently he had gone to Shichahai, and he'd gone to some other place. He wanted the real Chuantong stuff, and he was not finding what he wanted. And so he went to Tiantan, and he saw Xu. And apparently he was like, okay, let's see what you can do. And there was a challenge that ensued. And Xu says that all he did is body count him, and he sent him flying. And Misha got up, and he tried it again. And then so Misha was like, oh, I want to learn. So Xu would teach him Shenfa and stuff like that. And then he got an invitation to go to Russia to receive some sort of award from Putin, and he refused it. He was like, no, I'm not even. Xu doesn't speak any other language, so he feels very uncomfortable unless he has somebody close to him translate. The only time that he's gone outside to teach that I know of is when he went to Australia in the early 2000s.
Okay, so he has gone overseas.
Yeah, he's been
he did that once for a month. He went there for a month, and then he came back. And there was a whole thing of they're just going to do this international tour.
That was the thing that I noticed as well was just by seeing what was going on with Mark and stuff like that. sometimes it's too much so, but in Japan, like things are really structured.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would, well, what are you doing? Like, oh, do this, this, then we move on to that, this, that, this, then we do this, that, this, and then we do that because we do this, that, this. But I kind of know this, this.
Shoe system is not.
And then,
but I mean,
but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. But if you got the student being this, that, this, without any consistency, it becomes, that's where it becomes a bit of a mess.
What happened was, if you, so, back to what we were talking about before, so when I finally moved over here to see Xu and I started learning these things and learning these stories about what really happened with foreigners in Xu, to understand from his perspective, and then I heard from the foreigner's perspective, and I slowly began to find things out. Because of Xu, how he grew up and this and that, and he was training with his teacher, how people thought he was doing Taiji, he actually learned from a man named Zhang Qinglian. And Zhang Qinglian learned from Li Baosen, and Li Baosen was one of Yin Fu's students. Yeah. And it seems like they were pretty close because, I mean, they have written history together, and when I learned, and then obviously Yin Fu was Donghai Trend.
You mean who was close?
Li Baosen was one of the closer students in Yin Fu. Because the system that gets passed down is very systematic. And at first I was like, I kind of saw the system, but what I realized was the way Xu trained, so Xu's teacher was actually his father-in-law.
Right.
So his father-in-law figured he would be around forever, like you teach your kid. Like if you have your kid and you're going to teach your kid cooking, you might not teach him exactly how to be a chef, like you, for example, decided to learn how to be a chef.
With a finite course.
Or if I teach, like I taught my little brother some Chinese medicine, I wasn't like, all right, first thing you need to learn is da-da-da. It's an absorption process, right? Like over a period of time. And so his father-in-law was like, oh, you'll be able to learn this over a period of time. But then what happened is under communist rule, then the communists are like, oh, your danwei is no longer working here. You have to go over there. You're being switched to another danwei, like a working group, right? Like people in the West, I think, have a trouble understanding what that is. It's kind of like your job, or you're working for a government and they send you abroad as a diplomat type of thing. You have to move. That's just your job. Or your job requires you to move to another state or another country. It's like that's a danwei. So they require them to move across Beijing, far away from his father-in-law. At the time, he was living in the house with his father-in-law. So Xu never did a baisa with his father-in-law because he was his son-in-law. You don't do that.
He's already
part of the family. Right? You don't need it, right? Like so.
It's like marrying your wife twice.
Exactly. Second time's a charm. But he. So like some people would criticize him. Oh well, he's got no official this or that. He's married to the guy's daughter.
But did this guy have any other students?
He did. But I don't know much about them.
Are they still around?
Very few because this was a much older generation. Yeah. She was like 80, and she's one of the oldest living students of this guy. Yeah. This guy died in the 80s, and so what happened was because things were a little bit chaotic at the time, even though she learned a lot, then he put a lot of it together through just training. But a lot of his foundations is in his the Shaolin Taolu or the Shaolin Jiben Gong that were the base for the system, and then you would get the Bagua, and then eventually Xu went on and started studying Taiji on his own. And what he tells me is that a lot of what he learned from Bagua, he implanted into his Taiji. So when people see his Taiji, like, oh, that's not Biaojun, that's not correct. Okay, I understand. It's not Taiji as Taiji. It's actually like his Yin-style Bagua inserted into his Taiji. But it was never...
I mean, you've developed a certain way of moving.
Moving of his own.
It goes everywhere. Exactly. You sweep the floor, you see it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, So then what happened was that he never was able to come back and really connect with his teacher again for whatever reason. Things were chaotic back then, but he had learned quite a bit. He had learned, apparently, from what I hear from his teacher's daughter, is that he was the most intelligent, the smartest student of his teacher. Like he was revered, even though he was never able to come back. Out of all the students who spent time, he was the most advanced. Okay. That's what I've heard from Zhang Shifu's daughter. She's been like, nope, he was by far the most advanced student my father ever had. And then recently, a book was revealed that Zhang Shifu wrote, 175 pages, hand wrote, and it organizes everything. And
you got this from the daughter.
The daughter gave this to me. She was like, you have been, Xu has declared you his last 2D. And she, shortly after that, so I went out to sweep, this year on my birthday, I went out and swept her father's tomb. And I had asked her permission to do that. And she was really touched by it. And she was like, wow, none of Xu's other students have ever asked me to do this. I was like, really? And she was like, no. And I looked at Xu because she was there, and he was like, yeah, no, she's telling the truth. And I was like, well, I want to do this. And she's like, all right. And they had always talked about this book that was lost, right? Like, there's this book that was lost. Xu didn't know where it was. It was never got to him, you know.
I mean, we kind of jumped ahead a bit. So you're talking about Xu. This was his father-in-law.
This was his father-in-law.
The woman that you're talking about is his ex-wife?
His ex-wife, yeah.
So they're not
together anymore.
So that's why he doesn't know about the book.
Yeah, he doesn't know about the book. She knew that there was a book, and
he was supposed to get it.
But through the divorce, you know, you get bitter sides, and it didn't come from her. She and him have a great relationship today. In fact, she's probably one of his closest friends.
Okay.
It came from other sides of her family who were just bitter about the whole thing.
Was it political reasons they got divorced?
It could have been. I don't know. I'm not so clear because I hear different things. Yeah. But he's definitely not like he's your rebel in Chinese society. He's not down with the CCP, Guozhang Dan type of thing. So I swept this tomb, and with 10 days later exactly, she calls me up and she's like, wait, I have something to show you. And I was like, what? She's like, I found the book. And I was like, what? She's like, the book my dad hand wrote. And I was like, no fucking way. This is like out of a fucking movie. You know what I mean? Like a secret manual, like, because it wasn't ever meant to be publicized. And it wasn't like it was secret because it's got techniques. It was
magic in it.
Yeah, nothing like that. It was just because it was supposed to go to the top student. Yeah. Or it was supposed to go to the one that Zhang intended it to go to.
I'll never forget that day, man, in Tokyo, when I got the call, the video call.
Yeah, I was like, you'll never guess what you just... Yeah. I was like, because Simon and I have been... exactly, top of bottle, man. Like, Simon and I have been sitting here, and you're putting this stuff together, and you're like, this system is incredibly deep. You've got at least 3 Shaolin Taolu. Yeah. You've got all the line drills. You've got 64 strategies, 64, they call it Sisho, but Lewis is Sisho. But it's really strategies, because not all of them are hand techniques, right? It's like Shenfa techniques. And then all of these have derivations, and then it's Xu does his like 64 hands, much more like boxing line drills. Like this is done like this on a line. This is done like this off a 45, like this. It's not a Taolu. And he wasn't wrong. It wasn't because he didn't learn it. When you open the book, you realize that's exactly how Zhang taught them. And he's like, Zhang only describes, he tells you what they all are, but he only describes like 25 of them or whatever. Because when you realize the rest of them, like An or Jia or something, that's not a hand technique, it's a body technique. Yeah. So you would practice it within the hand techniques you're practicing. So
is it the Liu Ruquan 64 hands or something else?
No. It's a totally different
thing.
And
it's called Liu Shixi Shou.
It's called Liu Shixi Shou Jie, like a Jie Shi, which is like a poem, right? Okay. So it's called a 64 hand poem, and so it's just 64 characters, and then underneath that he gives a breakdown of the hand techniques that are particular, like Chuan, or P or something like that are particular hand techniques. And then there are ones like Kao. Like Kao is in a hand technique. Yeah. So he doesn't. It's like a bumping technique, right? Yeah. So he doesn't describe. Okay, this is this and this. He's describing the particularities of the hand techniques, but then assuming that you probably understand the context of the other ones. Okay. And it's very interesting. It's 175 handwritten pages. And it outlines.
Does it have the history in it?
It's got the history in the beginning, and he names a bunch of things too that aren't talked about, right? Like, and we were wondering because like, Xu's not really a history buff. He knows a little bit, but he's not really a history buff. So when Simon and I would talk, we'd be like, well, I wonder, and how to sort out fact from fiction, because everybody's teacher in Beijing, not everybody, but many people, they conflate their history, and I'm this and I'm that, and Xu's not immune to that.
Well, he is Chinese.
He's Chinese. It's kind of in their blood, right? Like but when we got the book, you realize Zhang was a very humble person. Like he leaves it, but he's not. He's like he literally gives a line and he explains what he did. Another line explains how, where, when, why. Moves on to the next thing. Okay. It's not like and then I came in first place and I beat everybody's ass. No, it's very straight. And then in the next year, we did this and we did this by sure. And we studied this many, many times. And then this person came into the school and then they did this. So it's much about also the people around him. In fact, when Zhang lists the lineage...
You know what it sounds like?
Yeah.
It sounds like a diary.
It is a diary. It very much is. When he lists... He not only lists his own tongshui, like his own fellow classmates, he also lists his teacher's fellow classmates. So he's very much about documenting these.
So this is something interesting. My teacher's always had this habit. He's had it from school. He writes a daily diary.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got like a bookshelf.
Yeah, of daily
just
diaries.
With diaries from when he was a kid. And it'll be everything like, today this guy came to meet me.
Yeah.
And he'll have his name, and you'll never see the guy again.
Yeah.
But it's in there.
But it's there.
The day he came, the guy's name.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he comes from this place, and he learned this for a few minutes with me, and then he left.
It's important.
You know?
It's important in an art like ours that is unfortunately been declining.
Well, that's the whole thing of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's like we don't want it ever to be in that state again. Like
Yeah.
with our legacy, for what we're doing or whatever, it's got to be like, you know what I mean?
Clear.
I've discussed this with Chinese medical people too. I'm like, we all talk about the people who originated the system, and I give a lot of honor to them. But we might even be in a more critical place in our time and junction in life. We're like the elite, special, whatever, and we have to take that, like, we have to lift this stuff out. We have to
fix
refine
it.
We have to fix it. We have to put it back out there. We have to make people,
fucking thing.
you know,
Like
it's a lot tougher.
To it in a lot of ways, and,
we're kind of in a tougher situation in many cases because we have, not only do we carry,
but also like I'd say that today's day and age and the Western mentality puts a lot more stress on things being clear, described. Everything is.
And why do this when I can go to a boxing gym and learn to knock someone out in 6 months?
I can go. They got 4 BJJ gyms around. I can go and do grappling classes wherever, and you know, and I can have people to train with, and this and this and that, and we can roll and you know, whatever. And I can get up and I can shower.
But I'm not even just in the martial arts sense. It's just the Western mentality in today's day and age.
It's
got to be. It's
super
like
clear,
it's like you buy something from the supermarket. On the back, it's got all the ingredients on it.
Yeah. How many calories?
I mean, if you sold the product without that, it won't fly. They'll be like, I'm sorry. Well, I don't even know what maltodextrose is, but I want to know that it's in there.
It's in there. Exactly. And that's it. And we talk about this all the time. And so what we did, seeing this and understanding the detriment of what's going on. So she gave me this book, and she was like, she wanted to give me the book, like, just give it to me. But the man who actually possesses the book was her, like, nephew, and he was like, no, it's a family heirloom.
Well, that's true too.
It is, but in very Chinese fashion, and you know this from living in China, there's sort of a problem in China where they annihilate their own history by literally taking something, putting it in a box, and sitting on it, and letting it collect dust until it turns into nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're like, well, you know, it's like, you're not using it. You know, you're killing your own culture because. And I have a buddy of mine who's a Chinese.
Does he do martial arts?
No, not at all, which is another thing.
Yeah.
And so she was like, and I said, listen, I don't even want the book, but let me take it to America. I'll bind it in an actual leather, because it's in a diary, like, case, Drunken, like the Drunken, like, bound case. Like, what he did is he wrote it out, they photocopied it on double paper, and they bound it with fucking string.
Yeah,
and so the old way, and I was like, let me take this to America. We have some of the best digital copiers in New York City. It's a bookmaking city. And I will get this bound with leather. I'll make sure it's preserved. I'll even get a digital copy so that you guys... And she's like, that sounds great. In a week and a half, she's like, okay, do it. And she called me back, and she was like, distraught. She was like, I can't let you do it. He refuses. She's like, I'm so sorry.
But find a place that can do it here.
So that's what he said. But I'm worried that I need to look up the high grade stuff first. So what I told her first, I said, listen, when I come back from America, because I went back this summer for 2 months. Simon and I ran a bunch of cooking things, and I did a Chinese medical clinic. We started transcribing it, like, and so because she's 78 or 76. Her, you know, I don't know how much longer she's going to be around. You know, what happens if her eyes go when she's 83? You know, she still identifies her father's handwriting. She grew up in old Beijing. She's a true Didao Lao Beijing. She was born in the second ring. You know, he grew up there. So she's got those concepts and those realities in her. And her dad wrote another book. Her dad wrote a book on Western cuisine. So she knows that her dad was an author. He liked to write. So she knows how he writes. So we got my buddy Martin, who's a Chinese scholar. He's been living here for 11 years.
You have a photocopy of the book.
I have the original. The original book that exists now is only a photocopy. The original text, I think, was discarded or disappeared, because then what he did in the book I have, he went in and hand edited the whole book. So I have original pen strokes and things from in the book. So we are transcribing it, character for character, exactly how he wrote it, including the mistaken characters of the homophones he replaced for things. And then in brackets next to him, we're correcting the characters. Some of these characters don't even exist in Unicode. You can't type them into your computer.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what they are, because you're like, oh, he really means this, or this means this. And my buddy Martin he reads the Jaguwenza. For you guys who don't know what that is, I mean, that's like the Oracle bone script for fun, you know, like he's like, this is fun, and he sits home, you know, and I'm like, oh, all right, bro, whatever you say, you know, like, so he reads these things, and so he's like the perfect guy to do this.
Yeah.
So he's doing it with us, and he's really invested in this. We've gotten 53 so far, 53 of the 175 pages transcribed, and then we're
that's good. That's good progress.
So so we're doing well, and we've got it typed up, and we're eventually gonna put it out, but it explains a lot. So like Simon and I, as a process of this, we were talking, we're like, bro, between Simon, who's a Sichuan chef, and myself, who's a Chinese medical physician, and we both do martial arts, we need something that protects the culture. So we decided to start ourselves an association.
Yeah.
Okay. And we did. We started ourselves an association that and we had our first meeting this August. We had 6 founding members who were all there.
This was in the States.
This is in the States. In New York. They met with us, and this is actually the first time we're talking about it publicly. And it's going to be more public come this next year. And we want to make it something kind of like a tong, like a traditional Chinese like tang, like an association, like a shihui that promotes, conserves, and continues the growth of, not just preserving, because you know how that is. Sometimes it's like, oh, we preserve it like this, you can't change it. No. We want it to grow. You know, we want it to flourish, and we want it to be alive, like
it's supposed to be.
Like it's supposed to be. You know, Bagua's not dead, Xingyi's not dead, Taiji's not dead, Tanglang Quan, all these things, they're not dead. But if you don't allow them to continue to evolve, you will ultimately stunt them, and eventually it's going to die. So, like, we got together, we met with guys who practice Hungar Kung Fu, we met with guys who practice Taiji, Bagua.
So these are the founding guys in the States, right? Yeah. Okay, so they're not all simply just people that are doing
no, not at all. In fact, many of them don't do it at all, and we all have different jobs.
Okay.
You know, like I'm a physician, Simon's a chef and a teacher. One of the guys is a teacher in the New York public school system. Another guy's a massage therapist. Another guy's a businessman who used to work in the wine industry and now does something else. And another guy owns his own Kung Fu school and is breaking into acting or something.
Okay.
And these are the founding
We've
members.
got like a Japan faction as well.
Yeah, we have a Japan faction.
One guy's like the top of the audio marketing division of Universal. Another guy works on, like, he just finished building the monorail system at Chiang Mai Airport, and so everybody does
something
stuff as well. You know what I mean?
They're not single focused, so like they don't have they can add things to it. You know, the engineer who builds stuff in the monorails, he can add engineering aspects to what we're doing. You know, and so like. So it's not just that too. It's also like we can help each other in business. We can help each other in all these things, and we can add to it and grow to it. You know, and I think that's it. And we looked at a lot of other groups and things to try to figure out how we're going to do this.
Yeah. And
we looked around and said, like, if you look at, for example, Chinatowns all over the world, they never fucking fail.
Yeah.
You know, they almost never, 90-some% of the time, they never fail. There's a way that it's organized, and like we got to do it like that.
Exactly, and that goes back to the whole thing of like talking about when I said I'm prepared to put the Feng stuff on the rails for now, because and as a greater picture in the long run, this is way more important because it's going to allow a space where his stuff can flourish.
I don't think they're independent of one another.
They're not at all. They're not.
Man, we've talked about so many things, especially I think that Feng and Xu were similar heights, similar builds, and a lot of their just the way they, especially going towards the usage of the art, is very, 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 very similar.
Super similar. They're both vicious, which I like, because it's hard to find. We were just talking about this last night coming home. Where do you find Chung style this today who are vicious? They're all like defanged tigers, most of them. You know what I mean? It's like, which one of them practices Shuai Jiao? None of them. You know, like, why aren't you getting out there and practicing these things? You know, like, or the yin stylists who are like all just, you know, performance and I'm not going to name any names, but I've met some teachers here who are yin stylists in Beijing, quite a few of them, and many of them, I'm not going to say all, but many of them are just like, and this is the Biaojun way, this is the standard way. And I looked and I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, so this is the technique we do. And he puts his hand up against me and he goes through the technique, and I just did this, and I expanded my palm, pressed back against him, and he double steps back and he goes, oh, okay. And then he went on, he says, let's have some tea. And we sat down. And I was like, what? Like,
I haven't met many yin stylists here. And Liang style that I practice is a combination of yin and Chung. So there's elements of both, and I've always looked, and I've always wanted to find more yin and Chung people to see this
as well as the combination of yin and Feng, right?
So when I looked, I must say though, like looking at content wise, an older video, he's gone now. Zhu Baozhen
was something. He was something.
I mean, there's stuff there that I immediately recognize.
And
I'm not in the yin system, but we have yin in our system.
Yes.
So I can immediately identify a lot of stuff there. And we have no overlap.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Our two families have no overlap.
Yeah.
So
I was saying to Mark before, like, a couple months ago we were talking about it, but I like, just personally from like studying with Feng, that is one of the only schools that I've personally seen that has like a bunch of dudes that could back,
that's important.
Like they could could really go at it, you know. And,
that's really important.
And not probably not so much now, but
back then
there are those dudes out there. You know, and the sparring used to be intense, man. Like in the end, like Feng ended up chilling it out because it just got
out of hand.
Oh yeah, like you know, like headbutts and like all, you know, like they used to, yeah.
But you know, I mean, like if I look at a lot of...
and he used to jump in there too. Yeah?
Really?
He used to rotate around.
Nice.
Spar with him.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should if you want to keep your skills.
Exactly.
And you got to keep your skills.
It was unfortunate. It was unfortunate because we had...
If you're teaching, for sure.
There was one person...
That's what he's always doing.
Name I won't mention, but who was in the group, who was a kind of dangerous combo because he was big, he was athletic, he was fucking nuts. Mental, and he did.
There's always one,
and he did nothing but the Xingyi and the 6 harmonies.
Okay,
and like
it goes to your head.
Like he would just like, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
he would come to class like black eyes for like just getting in fights with like, you know, 5 or 6 dudes out in the pub and all sort of stuff, you know, and that unfortunately, because although the sparring was like hard, it got to a stage where like, yeah, one time one sparring, I actually wasn't there that particular day, but one time one of the like. Feng broke up one of the sessions and this guy had, you know, got a bit of a schooling from one of the older guys and just flew across and headbutted one of the other students in the face and literally flattened his nose like flat on his face and like, you know what I mean, like, so, you know, it did get, you know, it
gets to that point.
it got, you know, and there's no gloves, no, you know what I mean, like, so, you know, and then that sort of, I came in more near the end of that, you know, probably a couple of years left of that, and then it sort of chilled out in the class, but then we kind of took it outside the class with the same dudes and kept it going.
It's like the first rule about fighting.
And we just rock up, and we just rock up, and Feng would be like, "Oh, been training heavy boys." Yeah, like,
black guy.
Yeah, I told you, watch out for that horse punch, bro. but like I will give that to him. Like, although sometimes I kind of like, in some ways didn't agree with it because I think it should have been more controlled in some ways, and I think some people should have been handled.
Yeah, you can't have a one size fits all. That's the problem with people.
I think there's a thing about. I think there's a real good organization for what I've seen a lot of Western boxing clubs. Like, you can go in, they've got a real good structure in a lot of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, you can go in and start from scratch and you can work your way up and you can see your transition along the ladder, and there's a control element to many of them that I think that's what one of the things we're missing in Chinese martial arts. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get Chinese martial arts a lot of times when you get into those schools. I've been in a couple of them where like you just like you'll enter in the beginning and you don't know anything and they'll just beat your ass. And it's like not like beat your ass through like standard horse stance, like they just inflict fear and pain in you, and it's like this isn't helping. But like Western boxing is about producing good boxers. You know, Chinese martial arts many times is not about producing good Chinese martial artists.
Yeah, it's about maintaining.
That's the whole thing with like, this is the whole thing with this sparring. Okay, so okay, do you get good things out of sparring? Yes, you do. Okay, but if you're just chucking on gloves, chucking in a mouth guard, and you're going right, you versus you, fight. First of all, it hardens you up a bit in the beginning. That's a good thing. You know, you can take a few shots, blah blah. But you are always going to be going back. Always going to be going back to your trusted technique. Because if
you're scared of trying, you don't want to lose.
You're going to get fucking flattened, right? So when I was training like with Guy, the pro, and Yuji is about that. You know, we did the kung fu, we did the boxing, we left all the bullshit at the door, and we're just like, but their training methods and how you develop skills, how you develop new fighting skills, were like really, 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 really good. You know, and we would just do things in layers. You know, and we would start off, and you would start off like over, you know, doing a technique over, you know, 3 weeks or a month or whatever, and you know, it'd be like, okay, so, you know, I used to have a lot of things of like where I'd be, because of the crew that I was training in, I'd be really used to dealing with Chinese martial artists, you know, but not so much boxing and stuff, which is a different setup. You know, it's a different way of setting people up, and there's a lot of trickery, you know, and you think you're good, next thing you know, you're on your ass, you know, knocked out. You know, so like what I would want to get really good at using what I knew against like grapplers, against boxers and stuff like that, because that's 99.999% of who you're going to face if anything ever pops off, right? But they just had these great like systems where it would just be like, so what we're going to do, so if you're doing something that was like boxing, right? Okay, you're going to throw 1-2 hook, you can do the elbow block and counter with the straight, because when the hook comes, the chin's open, you counter with the straight. Right. You can turn that into chuan, or you can turn it into bong. It's easy. It doesn't matter.
But you can do that yourself. You can create those little drills.
Well, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Exactly.
So this is how the process would go. It's like you do this, right? And you start off just doing it light, and then building up, and then you add punches onto it, whatever. By the end of the month, you guys are ripping into each other. And it's way more powerful than if it was just one sparring session, because you've been doing it for a month, you're sunk, you're confident in what you're doing, and it's delivering like real pressure and real power. And then you start taking it back to out of the boxing or whatever, and then putting it back into what you do, and then showing the grappler dudes like, this is what I do, and it does this full rotation. But over time you develop a way broader and more effective skill set.
Drills are far more important.
And one of the main things that we were able to do, which was kind of cool, is that I've got an environment like basically my business like kind of transforms at night into this gym. Like
you're sparred many times upstairs in a school with 10-year-olds.
And like the blinds go down. There's sometimes because I teach like gym to kids, they'll open up. Oh my God! There's all these like kick pads.
The first rule about Fight Club is do not touch the Play-Doh.
But at the same time, like my close friend Guy, like he liked training there with us because he trained at like his home gym, and they would get people like spies who would come in and. Wow. Or people who report back, and so he liked it because this was just way off the map, and we could just train, and he could work on like new elbows and new like locks, and no one would know, because it's just not even a gym per se. So it created an environment where, whether it was like the Southern Mantis dudes that were coming, or the Wing Chun dudes that were coming, or the Bagua dudes that were coming, or the Taiji dudes, or the BJJ wrestling dudes that were coming, or whether it was Christian with the boxing, or his friends, or other Kyokushin dudes that would come in, and tons of people being through doors. But it creates this environment where everybody can drop the shit. And you're not in anybody's dojo, and you're not having to
maintain your
level and come across like you're the man in front of you. I mean, everybody could just drop it, and we had this thing of like, if somebody couldn't do something, all work on it, until we all get it.
It's some of the most constructive training that
he's done it, man.
I've done it.
That makes sense.
I go through it with him because I'll come.
Explain it. But
I'll
go ahead. It's the first door. Just watch out for the wires there.
I'll go to Japan and we'll train. Like when I first went, like we went and we trained a lot of shoe stuff because we want to learn that. And he's like, let's go take this to my school with my students. And then we would do that, and we'd intermix boxing drills. And so we would do these drills, and the drill would change. Just like a boxer, like left, right, combo, this, that, whatever. And then you get it up to the point where you're doing it so fluidly, once you spar, it
comes out.
Like one of the things that we work on that was great, that I really liked, that I thought that I really learned from Simon that was super effective, is to take something you'd like, be like, you're only allowed to use these 3 techniques. I'm only allowed to use these 3 techniques.
I do that myself. Even if my partner is not doing it. I have a plan when I go into sparring. Even if he's doing free sparring, I'm like, I'm going to try use this and this and this.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it is, if you're doing this in this way, you can slowly all come up, and you know that no one's got a malintent. Because I've been in schools like Simon mentioned where it's like, just put the gloves on. Oh, fuck that free range shit, that pre-arranged shit. Free sparring is where it's at. Any of these people who go to those schools that are like that never get very far.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's like a progression. That's actually one thing I do like about Xingyi's progression. When you do the full system, you go from set techniques individual to set partner techniques.
Exactly.
And then from there you go into free.
Exactly. But there are too many people who jump right,
or they never get to the
exactly. There's 2 problems with it, and so but doing it both ways is exactly how pro fighters do it. And most of these guys, like we'll go hang out with Guy or Christian or whoever, or other fighters I've hung out with. They're sparring minimum. You know what I mean? A lot of this is training reflexes, doing things, and then when you spar, it's very light. It's not like hard and all out. Because I remember some of the schools I trained in, you'd always have injuries. Everybody would be nursing an injury. And I got a lot of experience treating injuries with Chinese medicine. Oh yeah, sure.
Do you want me to grab another beer
All right, let me pause this.
Yeah, let's do another beer. Sounds good. Yeah, no.
Okay, we're back. So,
all right, drink break.
Drink break, yeah. So we were talking about using methods of going from structured drills to free, and how that's a beneficial way to progress and start to actually broaden your skills, develop your skills, and actually not simply overlook skills that you're not good at simply because you want to win in a sparring situation.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a really massively important thing. You know?
Yeah.
And it is really, really, really difficult to up your skills. Like you'll get a certain level, like a 10% level of benefit from just going balls out sparring right from the beginning. You know, you'll harden up a bit, you'll get used to taking a few hits, you know, you'll get a little bit of, you know, but you'll never get to a stage where you're developing new skill sets, you know, and that's the thing that I think is missing in where it's just this balls to the wall thing. Because when you actually get into like pro environments, you know, which I've been in, for instance, that's not how they train, bro. Like that is not how they train. You know, like they might do a bit of balls to the wall, like, you know, like 4 weeks before the fight. That like 1 week before they do some real hard sparring and then cut it down. But before that, it's all drills and intensifying it as you go.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean because you're doing something that's, you know, a set pattern or a blah blah that it's not effective. You know, like it is effective. Like, but
you're just programming
it's
yourself.
programming.
Exactly. Reactive. You know, and I think when you go balls to the wall all the time, you truncate strategy.
Yeah.
You never learn strategy. Strategy is the other thing that you have to learn. And you get injured.
And that stuffs up your progress more than anything else getting injured. You know?
I've had injuries that last me 6 months or a year. I went back this summer, Xu wrangled my wrist and like being grabbed by an alligator and jerked around in a chin lock he was showing me because he wanted to look good on camera. And it was from an old injury that he had affected before. And I just, every time I did something, like I was trying to show these guys this almost like a fireman's carry, but it's not. It's this throw we have in the DR Zhang, the second palm in the Ba Zhang, or the Ba Xiu Zhang.
Yeah.
And it wraps around the waist. You actually grab the person, wrap around the waist, but the arm that grabs the hand to lead them around the waist or the shoulders, like you're going to throw in a fireman's carry, that wrist just could not. The minute I do anything, you know, and like that doesn't help, man.
But that could happen anyway. I mean, those kind of things.
It could, but I mean, you're more likely because, like, with this one group I used to study with, it was always like, we're going hard out. Like,
but I think that's the thing is that, like, if the environment is not set right, is that people get fearful for their health and their safety, and when they get fearful for their health and their safety, you know, it's a natural reaction to like
just go to what you know
and protect yourself at any cost,
and you can't expand your skills.
It's not really what you're trying to do.
Actually, I think I was listening recently, and we spoke about this before. I was listening to a latest interview with Joe Rogan, Faraz Zahavi, and Faraz was saying like, he teaches a student a new technique, and the student's like, man, this isn't really for me because everyone's different, right? And his theory is like, just give it a serious go for a few weeks.
Exactly.
And then after that few weeks, you feel the same way, then drop it. I'll never bug you about it again.
You got to get that understanding in your body. You
so you got to have that ability to get into it first.
I use the like, as far as like if we're talking about handwork, for example, I use like a lot of times like just simple boxing in the beginning for new people, because they don't understand anything.
Those 5 punches are gold. Five punches.
Get those 5 punches down. You can turn that into elbows, like any Bagua technique you can put it into. You know, I had a situation recently. You know, so there was one guy who came along, done quite a lot of fighting, right? You know, and he's like, yeah, well, you know, I'm like, man, you use your straight like heaps. Like, how come you don't use your jab at all? He's like, oh yeah, because like I've got short arms and my jab's too short. I was like, okay, you know, all right, give me a look at your jab. Yeah, that can be Chuan or whatever. You know, I was like, okay, give me a look at it, right? So this dude, every time he's sparring, we stand in front of him, hand goes back, throws a jab.
So he's telegraphing.
So I'm like, it's nothing to do with your arms being too short, bro. No one's ever told you that you're telegraphing. And he's like, yeah, but I need power. It's like, you're gonna like knock 10 times more sense into someone, dropping 30% of that power and not telegraphing your jab. And your rhythm is but. You know, like you're not. Like and you punch with a turned over fist every time. You're always trying to go for a draw. You never straighten up the fist. You never pretend to.
Watch in 5 minutes. You know what you're going to do for the next 35 minutes.
I gave him like this is I'm not talking me up. I'm being honest. You know, he's seen me go through it. Gave this guy like 3 weeks. the dudes in the class couldn't get near him with one hand behind his back, like jab only, like keep him out, keep him off, keep him out. And it's like, that's the things that if you're sparring, just ding ding, blah blah blah. When are you gonna learn? When are you gonna work on
it? Right.
When you got some dude who's like twice the height of you, who just wants to whip your ass. Who's been doing it 2 years longer.
I had a quote unquote coach who was exactly like that. Guy's 6'3", 6'4", and he can obviously his jabs can reach me a lot farther than I can reach him, and he just used his students as punching bags. And the day before I was supposed to fight in a tournament, and it's like a round robin. You fight multiple fights. He had me fucking spar 17 rounds back to back.
Oh, that's good for you.
Yeah, real good, right?
Oh no, we just fog.
We just got to get you like relaxed, and so everything comes out naturally.
What, your teeth?
At some point you realize it's just survival after that point, because every person he has you spar the day before the tournament, he just round robins them. So he's got 3 or 4 people you're sparring, and they're getting every round they get to go out. Or every 2 rounds.
They're coming in fresh.
So you're just trying to, at some point, and you hate it because these guys are like your sparring partners, you realize that you're going to have to try and just hurt them until they can't get in. And that's not what you want to do with your sparring partners.
And that's what should, that environment shouldn't be. Because then it creates animosity.
It creates animosity and it just destroys everything.
Elbow me in the throat, and next time we're sparring, I'm going to...
Then you're headbutting somebody.
Exactly.
And I've seen that before. I've seen that before at Feng School, because not everything was perfect down there.
Yeah.
And when I started like training with our group and stuff like that, I was like, that's not going to happen.
Yes.
Like, we're going to be like working on skill sets.
Right.
And it's going to be like, everybody's going to be even, But there's another side that I want to get there. It's like not just lack of skill. There's other things where... For example, another friend of mine, and me included, from my height, I've got kind of long arms, right? So I've always never really had a problem getting like my straight in someone's face, because like I've always had the long enough arms to do it. But when I started like sparring and stuff like that, they're like, oh, you got power on your straight and stuff like that. But man, that can be way longer, And some skill set that I thought was good, when I started breaking it down, I was like, whoa, I actually had like a fist and a half more on my straight, which is a long way when you're talking about that. And then when I developed that skill more, man, I could just be sitting outside and people were like, oh yeah, we're not even close. Bah! And then just hit them and they wouldn't even know, from spending the time to get that right. So, you do need the pressure and you do need the contact, but it's got to be cultured and developed in an educational way.
You just don't throw the guy in the fire.
That benefits everybody.
You go to Chinese, you study a language. We'll give it a language. You're not just like go. You know what I mean? And they give you like a HSK 6 in your first like week in school. You're just gonna fail. You're not gonna know what the fuck they're saying on the exam. But build it up. And you culture the person, like you said, and you raise the person. And what's the term in Chinese? Peiyang, right? Like to cultivate this person. Yeah. You will get, and that's what I think. That's our goal out of our association, to cultivate these things. So when you get you hit the ground running, and you know these things, and you're put through. And we look at many things for this. We look at like we've talked about like New Zealand SAS, Navy SEALs training. We've both read the book by Jocko Willink's, the Extreme Ownership book. We've read we're big readers too. That's another thing we promote, like learning of new knowledge, like in this association, right? Like one of my favorite books of all time is the David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me book. That book is phenomenal, and like these ideas, these mindsets that come on, books on how to learn better. And then going in and studying these things, we listen to different podcasts, whether it be your podcast or a great one is a China History podcast.
That's
trying to learn these things in depth, and then being able to apply them, and then going out and whether it's mental or physical, we'll go out training sessions in Japan. Jesus Christ, his wife was like, "See you later." We'll leave at 11 a.m. We won't come back till after dark, and this is in the summertime. You know what I mean? And like next day, we're like, oh god,
and it's 40 degrees.
It's 40 degrees, Celsius, and it's but and then we learn. We're like, and then so
and also that thing of like not going like against each other.
Yes,
that's what we've always had a thing that is.
Yeah, you're supposed to help each other.
It's never been like, oh Xu versus Feng. It's always just been like, oh wow, that happens that way. And sometimes we come to like a happy medium or stuff like, oh well, it actually works a little better. But working together, like and creating like going out and eating together, drinking together, like traveling together, like hanging out together, like bringing back that like family.
Yeah,
concept.
but that's what I was saying. Also, is one of the really important
parts.
Which
is what not just Chinese culture, but all Asian culture is
revolves around traditional human culture. Yeah. One of the greatest things I have ever learned isn't Xu style Bagua or the Bagua that comes through Xu. And even though I think it's one of the greatest things, what I find even greater, for example, is Simon learned something through Paul. Paul went to Shanghai, and I'll let Simon continue the story, but I'll just give you a summary. Paul learned this thing called Shibafa, Liangong Shibafa, but he learned the closed door method. Very few people learn that. From my point of view as a physician of medicine, Chinese medicine, this is the single greatest systematized, you call it a taolu, or just call it an exercise that's packaged easily to teach that I've ever come across for joint health, but also to create fali, to create power, to create all these things. This guy was a genius. He took Tai Chi Qigong, Ba Duan Jin, and Yi Jin Jing, and he put them together into a package that works. Like, for example, the first set, and I don't see this in much Qigong, and Xu's got great Qigong, but what this guy did was he said, let's use gravity. So he starts with the top of the head, and he uses joints and moves the joints and opens them all the way to the ground, not up, down, changing here, okay, this and that. Like some people have taolu or these groups of movements, but they change. This guy was very logical about what he did. And Simon learned this from Paul, and Paul lived with the doctor in his house. A lot of people study, they get association, certificates and this and that, but like Paul lived with the guy, spoke Chinese, learned the whole thing, learned all 3 sets. I find that, I learned that from Simon, that is one of the most in fact, we tell people, you're not learning Bagua first. Yeah. Like, you're going to learn this first.
If you want to learn Bagua, you're learning this. Like, there is no...
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. There's no argument. Like, that's just what you're going to learn. Like,
but it's not considered martial, right? Is it it's not a martial system?
No, it's Yangchang.
It's a physical health system.
It's Yangchang.
Yeah. It's Yangchang.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And it will teach you everything.
When people are coming in, they don't understand that this isn't martial, but this is...
But it's for martial.
It's the meat of the sandwich, man.
He's got, like, Guy, for example. Yeah. Guy said, like, I've been there when he's like, dude, I didn't fucking practice. What did he say? He was like, this one time he was like, I didn't practice my Shibafa this time. Man, I'm so sore. Other fights he had, right? He got messed up even more. He'd be like, he'd recover in a day. He'd get out of the ring. He'd be like, dude, I feel no.
I found the same thing. Like, I mean, I was telling you guys when we weren't recording that my teacher has a set of quite an extensive set of what we call Neigong, and that's what he first started teaching me. You know, that was like the foundation. And he also told me it's okay if you don't do your 5 elements or whatever every day. You got to do this every day.
Exactly. That's it. That's exactly.
And I feel like shit if I don't do it.
Yes.
So like Shibafa is like basically the first, like it's just a basic breakdown. It's like the first set is basically muscles, tendons, and straight like bone straightening.
Okay.
Yeah. Second's organs and joints. Yeah, and then the third set's just like full on just moving the like geez.
This will change your life.
Yeah.
Seriously,
for sure.
I used to have patients who would come in.
And
I couldn't teach
everybody does it. In my class, like, so I have people who are just Shibafa students, and then I have like Bagua students. Every single session we start with, we do all 3 sets and Xu's Qigong every time. Yeah. I don't give a fuck who you are.
Yeah.
But
that's the other thing. I don't know if you guys have seen that book that was translated and written by Tim Cartmel called Xingyi Neigong.
I have it. One of the good books. One of the really good books I like. Yeah.
But realistically, when I showed my teacher even this, and when I looked at our content, it's like, my teacher warm up.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is
exactly.
And you're supposed to do that. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the book or the content. What I'm trying to say is people think it's like it's something else.
Yes.
It's a
no.
That's
put it in its proper
how
position.
you're supposed to warm up.
This is not. Yeah, exactly.
And you don't warm up. You don't do anything before you warm up, right?
Exactly.
I've had one student and another student who started at the same time, right? But one student had never done like anything before, and the other student had done like a lot of stuff before, right? And they started at exactly the same time, and one student was coming like twice a week, the other student was coming like 5 days a week, and the student who was coming twice a week was like pretty naturally gifted, but this other guy had like a lot of experience as well, so he wasn't like,
wasn't a dead beginner,
and he was the students coming twice a week was, and the other guy was like why
why am I not progressing?
And I'm like, are you doing your Shibafa? He's like, oh well, no, I do it when
I don't have time.
When you make to. I don't have time. But this other guy, you doing your Shibafa? Yeah. every day.
Yep.
You know, and that was and I was like, dude, that's the difference, man. You can
That
you
is
can
the
walk that
difference.
circle until
It's
you fall
those
over, bro.
Yeah.
But unless you start getting deep into this, like
Yeah, totally.
To take a correlation, if you look at modern MMA, and you look at a lot of these interviews and things, it's the guys who have a refined strength conditioning coach, a refined nutritionist, all the things that traditional arts had kind of built into them, or generally, if they survive long enough, and especially in the good, when I say good lineages, I mean the ones that were fairly well educated in. You know what I mean? Those ones, they continued on. And so you look today at like a lot of people who kind of made it based on their own talent, but today are like, oh no, I'm a much different person now. I have a strength and conditioning coach and I have a nutritionist. It's an education into the theories and things that you do, and like using that cultural understanding of what you're doing. Our Neigong, that's our strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I really think, and it's our therapy. We don't have a million massage therapists who can massage us every day after. We can't go, and like Xu Shixi, like what he's talking about, that works. That's cardio. I'll do that, especially living in Beijing. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Last week it looked like the mist from fucking Stephen King. Like you couldn't see the buildings.
I think I did see some tentacles.
Yeah, right. Like it's all. He's in fucking Japan one time. They had the sirens go off, and like they're like, get indoors. This is Wumai from Beijing. And
I actually got a video on my phone somewhere, and like because we were training in the park, and we were like, holy shit, and it was like, you can see it was coming.
The pollution from Beijing.
Yeah.
Did it smell like Urguatel?
Yeah. Oh my god. And like burning baby diapers. For you people who have never been to Beijing, Beijing pollution smells like burning charcoal and baby diapers and some argor some like strong alcohol all mixed in together. It's awful. It's awful.
It was a touch of Sunday Twelve. A splash of herping dongjiao.
Oh my god. And so and you need this stuff. And I do this in the beginning, and then after I train 2 or 3 days a week, I go for about a 3-mile run, 2-mile run with a 9 kg rucksack.
Okay.
So I pack all my training gear that I take to the park, resistance bands, because I don't have a punching bag, but towels on trees, different things I'm going to use. My water bottle, which is a 2-liter thermos, and it's usually still half full. I put that in. I have a 511 series military grade backpack, and then I go for a run afterwards because that's what it takes to be a fucking warrior. You know what I mean? Like you can't half-ass it, but you need that qigong makes a world of difference.
Well, I take the train in Tokyo. I ride I ride between 4 or 5, and depending on the month, 600 k's a month, just going to work and back. Yeah, and then outside of that is all the riding I do just to get around town for all my.
So what are you riding?
Just a bike.
A bicycle.
Yeah. And then
I thought of just skateboarding.
Oh no. And then on top of that, obviously there's all the Bagua and all that sort of stuff as well. But and I ride, not
Yeah. I mean, my story is I had knee surgery 3 times, 2 different knees, because of sport wushu and all of that background. And when I started with my
I had
teacher,
a couple too. Had cartilage laser.
Yeah. I don't have any of that left. And my knee used to my right knee used to
Me
hurt
too. Yeah,
bad. But when I learned this, it just improved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's I've had patients in the States who will not do anything you teach them, or if they do something the next day they're like, oh, I'm so sore, I don't want to do this again. I'm telling you what, as my professional opinion as a physician, Shavafa is the one exercise I have taught them, just the first set, not even the second or the third, where the next day they're like, I want to do this again. The hardest patients I have ever had to get them to do stuff want to do Shavafa the next day.
Right.
And they come back and they do it. And they come back and they
translation
do it.
of Shavafa means 18 methods.
Even my wife does it, and she's in a household that's just completely Bagua crazy, and she's like, fuck this shit. But let's do Shavafa.
I'm sure she loves martial arts.
But you know what I mean. But that's
the other interesting really about, especially about the Western lifestyle. I mean, there's a lot to be said about just people doing some exercise, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, 90% of people's problems will go away if they just did some exercise, and if you do good exercise, it'll be even better, right?
I'm in contact with 300 kids a week.
Yeah. I've been to those classes with them. Yeah.
I don't I haven't. When was the last time I was sick?
Long time. Yeah. Long time ago.
But it's it's just got to be. It's got to be a part of your life, you know.
You have to. I mean, there are things too, like,
and martial arts can wreck you just as much as they can help you.
Sure.
Even quote unquote
outside of physical contact.
Even quote unquote internal martial arts. You know, the whole Neijia trend. We've done things like when I first moved here to Beijing, I was going hard.
Yeah.
I was going hard, and we used to talk about this. And I was like, "Well, I'm fucking sorry." He's like, "Well, I'm fucking sorry." Yeah. We realized like we're going too hard.
Yeah,
and we're not doing the other things.
Yeah.
And then we're also like, we were like, I'd call him like, "How many hours did you train?" He'd be like, 6. I'm fuck. I gotta go out and do another hour and a half. Or how many hours? I call him, be like, "Dude, I'm gonna go out tonight and like match your hours." And like we also find certain training implements we use. Like people say, "Yo, you use bricks and this and that." We found out, like, for example, certain things. I know this might sound weird to some of the viewers or the listeners out there, but for example, using bricks, well, they sound great and they can be. We found that the square structure of the bricks left an unnatural feeling in the body, and tightened it. But when we used like heavy joints, it tightened the joints. But when we used heavy balls, using them and holding them, it floated. You didn't have the same like.
Yeah. But what were you doing with the bricks?
Holding them when you're using postures and finisher.
Just holding them in your hands.
Yeah, or using certain things. Like for basically like resistance training, right? But when we got the like the pouting one, like the heavy balls that they have that are not the ones with the charms, but the ones that are like weigh a good few kgs, you know, 1 or 2. Like, and you do those, you're like, my joints, my muscles might be sore, but my joints don't feel as tight. You know, you're developing these understandings.
It's like holding a joint in your hand.
It's like holding a joint because they're round, roll. You know?
Right.
And also you can change the finger grip positions way easier than you can on the brick. Yeah. So you can change, like, if you're practicing like your tolu or whatever with them, you can express it, like you can put it down the bottom when you go in here and bring it up to the top.
So you practice.
One of my Bagua brothers actually made, from the old stories, he made the clay gloves.
Oh shoot!
He actually made them.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's hard work, man.
I have not seen anybody use the balls in the same way. We got this idea from Xu, because she was like, I use these balls, and he uses them as anchi, like hidden weapons.
Yeah.
But
which you saw.
Yeah, in the video was phenomenal. Like that Mastrandrea Xu. Any of you guys who have not watched that video that Byron has just put out, well, by the time this gets out, it'll be old by then. But the one on the Bagua, you guys gotta watch the part about Mastrandrea Xu. He goes over some gold in there about what these weapons are, because
his interview is one of the best I've read.
Anything with Mastrandrea Xu is gold.
Inside China? Was it?
Well, it's Yarek's America's China from inside.
China from inside.
Anything with Mastrandrea Xu, if
that
you guys ever study
I've read
Bagua,
that like a ton of times. Every time I go back and read the interview, you go, oh, and you pick out
something new. He's phenomenal. And he goes over those things, and then going over Xu Zhang's book and seeing a lot of similarities, and then even more different things. I'm like, dude, this was like a living thing, and it still should be. They were developing things even in Mastrandrea Xu's day. Yeah. Why are we developing things now? You know, like so we should be. Yeah. So like one of the things I like about Xu is he's got a lot of anchi he's developed, not just ones that like he uses. So you guys know the reusable cork tops for the wine. Yeah. So you can get ones. You used to be able to get ones that were metal. So he puts one of those in his backpack, and they fit right in the palm of his hand because it's got like a moon crescent top, and he'll just hold it. And he just holds it, perfect. And it's that piercing. He gives a piercing, and you see this guy. He can flip it. Basically, his palm changes. Flip it in while doing Chen. He can make it disappear, pop it under his forearm, and look at you in a guard posture. You won't even know it's there, and you know this guy's been at home practicing this like thousands of times. Like, and it's fascinating, and to see this, like those people, like your Shifu, like Feng, like Xu. These people keep this alive. We got to do this, you know. And so that's one of the reasons we decided to start this association.
Yeah, that's tried for years, just like working on that whole thing of like trying to get the working, you know, in a realistic fashion, like in like a ring setting as well, where you don't have shoes on. Because I think like one of the biggest things with Bagua kicking is having like shoes on.
Yeah. It's really
like,
based on shoes.
If you got shoes on, man, or like army boots, military boots, or like
you start using your toes.
You wreck someone. You know, like really, and like, but when you go into the ring, a little bit different story. You know, at least you got to work at it differently. But sort of working for that, and just through friends and a friends group, like bringing back like. But
also going further, you know, like you know what I did when I I learned our Shuang Yue, you know, the
double axes, the double Mandarin duck knives.
I mean, they should be called Mandarin duck knives. For some reason in the West, they're called the deer fucking antlers.
Then they got people who hold deer antlers. I've seen like Hoods and Bao.
We have deer antlers themselves. We also have them in our in
the Lu Jiao.
Yeah, but I don't know why they call those.
Deer horn
Mandarin
knives,
duck knives. They call them deer
horn knives.
Yeah, deer horn knives. Anyway, that weapon. I mean, that's a routine.
Yeah.
That's not a very long routine either.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I started doing was breaking it down.
Yeah, exactly.
And making line drills.
You gotta break it
you
down.
have to. Xu always tells me. I've gotten to the point now with training with him where, in fact, this has been going on now for almost a year. He says, stop training Taolu.
Yeah.
Break
only
it down.
Train Jishu.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
break it down.
only train the technique. Jishu for you guys out there is technique.
Yeah.
He's like, don't waste time training Taolu.
Yeah.
He goes, only train it to remember it so that you understand the categorization. You know what I mean? The fact that we have these things.
Or just as a reference.
It's a reference.
It's a reference. It's like a book so you can remember it.
We were just talking today. We were just talking today about a leg sweep in the Siping Chen, right? So you've got these you've got more than three, but you have three basic Shaolin Taolu. In the Yin style that comes from Shu, you have Siping Chen, you have Lohan Chen, you have Jinggang Chen. And in the Siping Chen there's a sweep. But it's not one sweep or the other. It's both in one movement. And practically, it would never work like that. But the idea is you practice it like that because if you practice the other way, you'll always fall short sweeping a leg out and pulling it back and strike out. But if you practice the other way, if you practice only out this way, you'll never catch the close sweeps.
Yeah.
So the idea is that they're disguising two or three sweeps in one. It's like reading a sentence that if you read it in one rhythm, you'll get something out of it. But if you read it in the second rhythm, you'll get something else. That's the depth of, and a lot of people I think outside of Asia and I'll say China, but I would say Asia even more. There are like calligraphy works that can be read left to right, up to down, and diagonally. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's the point. Like it's how you look at reality. And if you look at your Taolu as like that, the ability, it's a lens in which you can look through reality through and then split it apart, and you can see the colors of the prism. But it's not the prism. The prism together is beautiful. But the application comes in seeing you have white, or you have green, you have blue, you have red, you have all these different colors of light. That's what makes the white light beautiful. You know what I mean?
What drew me away from my first teacher into studying with Feng was just because of so much Taolu, and I was just like, I just know, like through my background of like sport and stuff, that I just knew like, nah man, like we need to be, you know what I mean? Doing that, like I totally see why we need to be doing this, but we need to be doing a lot of other stuff as well to you know,
for sure.
I mean, my training, man, to be completely honest, of when I teach the guys in Japan and stuff like that, we usually, when it's getting dark, after I usually teach like 3 to 4 hours on a Saturday and Sunday, both days, and we'll usually be like the last 30 minutes, 25 minutes. We'll go over some Taolu, and we'll just go through. We'll go through the 3 sets. We'll go Dong Bashu and Bajang and Bashing. And we'll just rotate it out, do a couple of palms, go right way through. If there's any major problems in that, we'll go over it. And we'll just keep rotating the palms around like that. But that is about how much of it is. And then by yourself, like go out and. But I don't want to waste. It's not wasting. It's not wasting, but especially if you got time, because Bagua, like, it's great having partners, right?
It's a partner martial art.
When you got time together, use that time together, and then go do your Taolu,
I see it kind of like you see wrestling today. You can't practice wrestling really alone. You can't practice grappling. You can't really practice Bagua alone. No. You even require a tree many times to walk around. You know what I mean? Like. And all these techniques that are done like this, it really is a partner martial art. Like Tai Chi, granted we want partners, but there's a lot of practicing alone. Even Shingi. Bagua, without a point of reference, what do you have? I mean, you do, but you don't. But
you get so much more out of it.
You get so much more out of it. And that's
you mentioned Siping Chan.
Yeah.
Is there any is there some relevance of the Siping? What are they?
So the idea is that it moves to 4 corners.
Okay.
So it's the shape of it. So you'll actually be starting at a place and you'll be ending at the same place, but in the process you'll make essentially a rectangle. And within that you'll have a bunch of movements, and when done slowly, so there's also Xu in his in his time training it, developed it into sort of a very soft version of what he calls Taiji Bagua, or Bagua Taiji, where he took the Taiji principles that he saw people in Beijing, because Beijing's a real big Taiji city as well.
Yeah, and that's another thing other people don't even realize.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It is. It's a huge Taiji city. Like, people are like, oh, it's a Bagua city. Yes. And it's like a gritty, you understand why Bagua was used, you understand why, like, you don't want to fall down in an alley on a hutong, you know, like...
Take a look around the hutong.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, you know, like, and when you see the millstones, like, you have to use power to grind these fucking millstones. Like, you see these things are sunken into the ground from the Qing dynasty, they probably weigh, 400 pounds, you know, they're heavy. And then he took the Taiji that he saw around him and that he was seeing, and he applied it to his siping. So he already had the sipings, but he made it soft. And he applied it with palms. And so he got all this extra idea out of it, you know, by applying these different theories. And then so Sipping Chen is this four-corner thing. And Sipping is hard enough as it is. It gives you your basic kicks, punches, cardio, strength, throwing techniques. Mm-hmm. Then he goes into Lohan Chen. Lohan Chen is an idea of, it's a lot longer. It's got a lot more of these leg sweeps in it. A lot more leg sweeps.
And throws.
A lot of leg sweeps and throws. It's like predominantly what Lohan is. It's got punches, but the Lohan Chen that he teaches is predominantly leg sweeps and throws. So it's a lot more lower body. And then Jinggang Chen, when I first learned from him, I was like, that's it? Like, because like you're in Lohan Chen or Sipping Chen, you're like, wow, this is tough, man. I wonder what Lohan Chen is going to be like. Lohan Chen is like dragging you into deep water after you're already tired of swimming, and you're like, oh god, how am I going to get back to shore? And then you're like, Jesus Christ, like Jinggang Chen is going to be super hard. Then you're like, wait, it's over already? You know, like, but it does a lot of double palm or double strikes. Okay. Hand double strikes, and a lot of these very interesting double strikes, like double punches and things that like weren't in Sipping and weren't in Lohan, and it's interesting like that. And
that's interesting. I mean, the connection to Jinggang and then the use of the double strikes.
Very much so.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
You definitely see like with Xu stuff compared to Feng stuff. It's like you can definitely see that Feng's is like it's this, you know, coming from bits and from everywhere and then made into the system, whereas like Xu's is way more like just from the start to the end. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're like, oh, that's this,
it's far more linear. Even the application of Xu stuff, even though you've got all this swimming dragon stuff and this and that, he starts you off with a lot of linear application versus everything I've seen from Simon, clarify for me if I'm wrong, has been a lot more, there's a far more of this rotation stuff in the beginning when you start Xu stuff. That makes it very difficult to practice.
Feng stuff.
It's hard.
Yeah, like, Xu stuff doesn't become like that
because that's refined body mechanics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Xu stuff does not become like that until the upper levels.
Right.
It's very much like a lot, like, and the way Xu teaches is in layers. So people who have come in the past, or I've discussed things with and debated a lot of Xu stuff with, like, no, he taught me like this, and da-da-da-da. I'm like, you haven't been here long enough to understand. It's like going to America and being there for 3 months and thinking you know how to speak English or England. And then you go back home and you insist it's that. But for somebody who lived in England or America for 5 or 6 years, they're like, well...
It could be that, but it also be that.
And then you're arguing and you're like... But it's like...
But if it's with that, it means this.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea is, for example, some systems have Yoshen, like this swimming body idea, right? Or the swimming body technique or whatever. Xu's is a principle. A lot of what Xu stuff is based on principles. This is this. And then you'll go and learn it from him a couple weeks later, and it'll be like this instead. And you realize, he never says it, but you realize he's teaching you in layers.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, for example, when Simon started coming, like, he would sometimes teach Simon at the layer he was at, but sometimes he'd teach him at the layer I was doing things recently. Yeah. And so Simon would come to me like, what is the connection between here and here? And then when I was in Japan and we'd have time, I'd go through these connections. Or sometimes you put that to the side and you'd be like, that's not for right now. I need to get this and this and this down. And then, because this is way too confusing to add this in now. And then later on, you get to it and you're like, oh, now it makes sense.
One part of the story we probably haven't added in is like, he's been to Japan like 15 times.
Yeah, 15 times.
I've been out here a bunch of times. Like, we've been to Hong Kong together.
We travel internationally.
Together, been to New York together 2 or 3 times. Been to New Zealand together. We get around.
Yeah, we get around. We do a lot of things. We go all over. We
that makes you the second New Zealander I've had on this show.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, we do a lot. We've done a lot together. We've trained in different places. We've gone and met different martial artists in different places.
Nice.
One of our goals is to actually even go and connect with. We were talking about studying more Shuaijiao. Getting in and connecting with some of these
well, then you should meet the other New Zealander.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Very cool.
Okay.
He lives here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
His name is Mike Ashley Wicks. He studied with Li Baoru.
Here in Beijing. Okay.
Yeah.
And also we wanted to do like Sandai, some of the real. I talked to you about some of the professionals to get a perspective, right? But also we had mentioned. I know this might seem really strange, but some of that Indian pit wrestling looks phenomenal.
Seeing that stuff,
like you know what I mean, to get a perspective of how this stuff might be applied. It's awesome. Like, and just to get these perspectives and to be willing to. Fuck, man, I moved to China. You know what I mean? I'm willing to travel.
I haven't seen any Indian pit wrestling here.
Not in China, no. But eventually, like, our goal eventually is once I leave from here, I'll be in Japan.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we planned. We picked Japan is because it's just such a great jump spot.
We can go to New York,
back and forth, between.
It's also far easier. It's far cheaper to travel from there. I want to buy a ticket to Taiwan from here. It's like $500 US. Buy it from there. It's like $150.
Oh, that's
the tariffs are like far less.
Down there on the right, if you're not picky about times, you can get down there for $80.
Yeah. The tariffs
crazy.
Because Beijing hits you with tariffs. It's like this governmental like tax because they want you to fly in but not out. You know what I mean? And so they don't want you to go to Taiwan. Now they have the block with Taiwan, right? They don't allow anybody from China as of March this year, any Chinese person to go to Taiwan unless you're in a group.
Yeah, without a tour group.
So like I have
a recognized tour group.
A recognized tour group. Yeah.
Because Japan and Taiwan have had like a really good relationship for a long time. So there's a lot of
Taiwan and Japan have actually never really had beef. When Taiwan was taken over by Japan, they were like, okay, fine, and so all the problems that happened on the mainland with Japan, Japanese army, Taiwan never really experienced
that predated it. I mean, Taiwan was part of Japan way before.
For a long time. So they still do. I see a lot of my Taiwanese friends are dressed up in they take a lot of pride in Japanese culture that has been imbued upon them during that time.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, the second best Japanese food I've had out of Japan was in Taiwan.
Oh yeah, there was some legit Japanese food in Taiwan. And there's even a lot of Japanese that speak and stuff like that. Yeah, they're just like like through history and stuff. Obviously, that's where so much obviously of Japanese came, that through Fukian, through just all through that region, and it's plainly obvious. Like when you get to Okinawa, you're like, am I in Taiwan? That's what it feels like. And then it just not sorts itself out, but just sort of.
Subtly moves out
as you go through.
I've always wanted. I've never been to Okinawa. I've always wanted to go.
I would love to. We were talking about
Okinawa.
We should go together. We were talking about some of the Goju-Ru.
Yeah, I want to go see some of those.
If you're going to do, for anyone who's interested in Okinawa, if you're going to do Okinawa, you should definitely do Kyushu, like Fukuoka, that region too. And especially if you're like, so I posted a photo on my Instagram. If anybody follows me on Instagram, I was in the National Museum of Tokyo recently. And they had from every single of the regions, from all through Japan, they had their katana, like the samurai sword.
That was cool. That's right. We went and saw that.
The one from Fukuoka region, more Miyazaki, so over the other side, towards off of China, was full on Japanese katana, like blade quality, in a straight sword.
Yeah, double-edged
straight sword.
Okay, so this is really interesting because I don't remember what book I was reading about some guy who was doing research on Japanese karate, and he was digging up some old writings from way back when, and they were talking about some swords that were used in Okinawa, and the legend is that they came from China, and they were straight, and they had tassels on them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they had tassels on them.
It's on the Big Lots. Yeah.
So I mean that's pretty much a Chinese yin.
It totally is. It's like a total Chinese yin, and it's just got the, what I mean.
Yeah, the finishes of the Japanese swords. Yeah.
But I was like, like the lady who I went with had no idea. I was like, whoa, what the fuck?
No, it's pretty incredible. Like one of the things I find about Japan, and I love China. I live here, but one of the things I find about Japan is a great respect for the traditional arts and all aspects of it. You know what I mean? That
I think at some point you could even say that the Japanese revere the Chinese culture
more than the Chinese. We talk about this all the time.
I've had untold conversations with Japanese people in Japan who are just like, look, Chinese culture is incredible.
Oh, you need my wife?
Yeah. I'll show you the Instagram post.
If it wasn't for them, but I mean,
for Taiwan is the same thing. Like again, coming to mainland is definitely incredible. But one of the things about Taiwan is me being from New York City. They have temples like the hood has bodegas. Like every corner has a goddamn fucking temple,
and there's no entrance fee. It's a living temple.
It's a living temple, and it's not some historical relic. It's a living temple, and on top of that, when I've asked these people, wow, the government really puts a lot of money into temples, they're like, the government doesn't give us any money. This is all funded by the locals.
And by the patrons who go there to pray.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
And that's the thing for me too, because I like going to temples.
Yes, I love it.
I hate going to temples in China.
Yes.
Because I hate paying $60 to go into a place of worship.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, do I really need to go? Like, do I need to pay $60 to see this faded picture of UFA? Like,
no, you go inside and there's a monk playing with his phone. Yeah, I mean. And I go to Taiwan, and it's a different story. It's full of people going in there
Hong
for
Kong,
spiritual
Taiwan,
reasons,
Japan,
and
Korea.
it's free.
Yeah.
Japan is
Japan. I had the same thing in Japan.
He has a beautiful temple near his house. A couple of them. One of them is the one in the park. Is gorgeous. I'm just trying to get on the.
Are you talking about the Kitsune?
Kitsune, yeah. That's the one we do every New Year. But then we do Solar New Year a lot of times in Japan, and I do Lunar New Year with I have a Taiwanese. I've been adopted into a Taiwanese family in Taiwan, so I go down and see my godson and this and that, and we do temples all the time. But the one that's in Kichijoji, you're walking through an outdoor mall, kind of like in Solana here, where it's like outside and open, and you're like, what's that little door? And it looks like a fucking Narnia door, and you open it up, and suddenly everything goes quiet, and you're inside a 17th century Japanese temple right next to the mall. Turns out that the temple owns all the land.
There's a karate and aikido dojo down the bottom of it.
Oh,
it's
nice!
Incredible.
Oh shit, I got a video of that too. But yeah, man, I mean, it's like I find living in Asia adds so much.
Yeah,
to your training and to your experience.
Absolutely,
because
there's a lot you can learn in Asia.
Of course, Japanese and Chinese culture are different, but man, I'll tell you that underground, the core roots of it, it's all from China, and it's all the same. And the etiquette is a little bit on the top with the cream and the cherries and the blah 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 is different. But if you get down to the core cultural roots between the two countries,
It's the same.
Yeah, the same.
It's the same. And they understand
I don't feel out of place in Beijing.
Right.
I don't come here and feel like, oh god, shit. What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
I don't feel that at all.
If you can't get on, you can.
Check that out.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's crazy, huh?
That's a high quality blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, nice. Yeah. Send that to me later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You got to get on Instagram, man.
Yeah, okay.
It's worth it. It's not political. It's not the bullshit that's on Facebook. It's on Facebook.
Okay.
That's the only reason I'm on it. But
so I want to talk. I mean, what are we sitting at here?
You're sitting on a while.
Quite 2 hours something.
Yeah, you have to cut it down.
Anyway,
5 hours, guys. You ready?
We're starting our first Drunken podcast mini-series.
How much beer you got?
I wanted to talk a little bit about just your experiences training with Xu. I mean, you can both talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
Or training in his system, etc. So.
That's a good thing to ask. Xu's fascinating because Xu is a genius and he specializes in Kwai Jiao.
Okay.
He's really
Kwai Jiao is fast wrestling.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of striking, but he avoided it for many years because he had some unfortunate incidences exist with some of his students who actually killed people.
Yeah.
So he stopped teaching the striking methods because he felt very remorseful for the deaths of two people due to that. So, but he was always, ever since he started training with his teacher, Zhang Shifu, he was always remarkably good at Kwai Jiao.
Okay.
He was just very good at it. So he focused on that more. When talking to his teacher's daughter, his ex-wife, she says her dad Gaduan was very good, but when you read the book and you ask her and you talk about it, he far more talks about the need for striking than the Kwai Jiao. Xu talks about striking. It's not it's just that for example, when you read John's book and you talk to his daughter, it was first thing you need to do every day, you need to do hundreds and hundreds of thousands of chuan, piercing. Where she will say, you need to do chuan. Let me show you this throwing technique. So it's just a different, but Xu is on the verge of 80 years old and his muscles still feel like he's a 35 or 40-year-old. I mean, he practices a lot of physical things. There's a lot of techniques that he's developed or that he learned from his teacher. It's not this, let's just stand in a Zhanzhuang posture and then slowly cultivate our powers through that. No, it's go out.
His techniques are lively and refined.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love his Jinna.
Yeah, Chinna is second to none.
Yeah,
he catches you very, very you don't know he's got you, and then you're stop!
Feng's Chinna was really good, but overpowering as in here I come.
Yeah.
Stop me. You know. Whereas with Xu, like you don't even know, and the next thing, and when it goes on, it goes on proper. Yeah. I really like his chin is second enough.
We talked about this before. Like Xu a lot of times when Xu gets something, it's almost like an alligator. You see it, it's slowly, and then it snaps and
that's it.
Rips its head around, right? Like
it starts going into a death roll.
Yeah, it starts going into a death roll, and that's like it. It's that you don't know it's there, you don't know it's there, you don't know it's there, and then boom, and you're not getting out of it. You know, and he rips you around in the process, and you're like, he could throw you purely based. So like some of the videos people see of that really thin student in shoes. I know that guy. He was in Robert J. Arnold's video as well. And he's been in the class a couple times. He doesn't really come around much anymore. He never really trained much in Xu's Bagua system. He trained in some Tai Chi. He trained in a little bit of Bagua, and then he went off and started teaching his own stuff, but never really learned the extent of the system. And so he's not really a derivative holder of Xu's system.
Okay.
But when you see that video of him hopping around, that's legitimate. I mean, I know he's like really light and he's not very heavy. Trust me, like I've sparred people, I've done things with people, I've wrestled with pro fighters. That dude is not reacting in any crazy way. Like
he's not acting.
Oh,
he's not acting.
For us last time was Himash. Last time we went back, and I did like a day where we did gun the whole day. Then we went over like the sipping, like striking methods, and then I think it was the third day we did like Chinna.
Yeah.
And there was me and Mark, and because Mark comes out to Japan and trains with our crew out there, right? So I get back and like, we're having a beer after training. I'm like, we did this a lot of this chin stuff, put on these videos, and it's got him doing like short figure chin on me and Mark.
It's the best, but it's worse.
And they used to, these guys are used to us teaching him whatever, and there's this video of Mark like and then me too like and then they're like, really, bro? And it looks like, but it's that.
It's that good. Yeah,
man.
he is. Yeah. He really is. And in his older age, he's really refined a lot of things.
Okay.
Because he doesn't do as much of it's very rare to find him do a lot of long, like heavy, powerful strikes like you see in the old days because he's older. So he does a lot more like short range stuff.
Right.
Doesn't mean he's not strong. There's a video Simon has of him. He got punched in the shoulder by Xu. His second time out here, and his whole shoulder turned black.
Just completely black.
Completely. It's on Instagram. You could see it. It was started here, and it just worked its way out. And she was like, "I'm sorry." And Simon's like, "It's okay." There's
some
okay. They're just gonna cut it off.
There's some other funny moments. This is what I remember. I don't know if Mark remembers or not. He probably will. But one time we've been there for ages, and we've been doing Chinna. That was when what was his name? Huang was his name?
Huang was there. Yeah,
he was there for one day.
Yeah,
and so he was like, should have been doing this Chinna on us, and we started off the session like, so how does this one go? He's like, I was like this, and by the end of the session, like, I'm like, Mark, put your fucking hand out, bro. And you're like, nah, Simon, you put your hand out. I'm putting out my left, and then he's like, no, give me the other hand. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, she will always shoot towards the hand that hurts more. Like he just has that sensing. He'll put out the hand that's stronger, and be like, and what he'll do is he does it really subtly. He'll look you in the eyes and he's talking to you. He'll shift over the other hand. He'll grab the other hand, and he'll like place it on his arm, but not in a way where like people like grab my hand like this. Yeah. Like he'll lure you, he'll bait you into grabbing him in a way that you don't want to grab him. Yeah. And then he was very good at Kwai Jiao. He's very good at throwing. And when he did push hands, one of the things I find that I've learned from now training with Xu nearly 4 times a week for the past almost 4 years, up until recently when I've really put a lot of my dedication and time into the Chinese language, so I haven't been as much, but I still go, quite a bit, but still not like the 4 or 5 times a week one of the first 3 years. He was very much about what is the end result. You know what I mean? Like he's like, train these different methods, train the distances, striking at a distance, this and this and that, but know what happens too when you get to middle range trapping, what you get in here, and all these different things that are logical in any martial art. But then the other thing that I liked about him was, what's your goal? Are you trying to incapacitate your patient or your not your patient? Your yes, your patient. Your opponent. Freudian slip. Sorry, but like,
that was a great advertisement.
Chinese medicine. Here, drink this.
Drink this and hold this.
But like, that's
give me your hand.
Yeah. But like, we've talked about this too, about developing modifying. It's not even modifying. It's taking Tuisho back to what it was. It's not like if your end game is to push your person far away. They're far away. You can't do anything. And Shu's always talking about like, why are you playing Tuisho and pushing the person far away?
Yeah.
What's the end goal? Like
Feng was the same with that.
What's the end goal?
His like, a lot of people come and like his Tuisho like people be like, oh, it's too hard.
Yeah.
But it wasn't hard. It was just like circles build up over years and years and years, and he just had like 9 different.
Oh, I'm so tired of that comment. It's too hard.
Yeah,
What's too hard?
Yeah, exactly.
And he had like 9 different patterns that he did, and some of the patterns were sick. Like some of them were like when you hear and you come up with the elbow, protecting your ear and back through, and like and you drill. Man, you
Shu has a lot of patterns like that too.
Year? Yeah, someone put their hands on you. You just like
Shu will tell you. He'll say,
"I did too." Like all the little tricks, like the oof, got you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
No, I'm not playing patty cake and little games with people. And I mean, we don't do Tuisho, and I mean, there's no.
We almost never
do.
Yeah.
So,
there's not in any Bagua.
You could do some exercises, but it's not in line of what we understand as Tuisho that people are playing.
Yes. No, Shu, same thing. He would say there's Bagua Tuisho, but he clarifies and says it's 2-person drill.
They're drills.
It's not Tuisho, but he'll say, I practice Tai Chi, so I use this in Tuisho. Yeah. But he'll very much clarify. He'll just say, Bagua Tuisho, this is Bagua Tuisho. He goes, in Bagua Tuisho, ni shi jin. It's like Tai Chi, well, bujida.
I had this guy, I think it was maybe 8 years ago, and I was training with my teacher, and this guy just arrived, and he came up to my teacher. He's like, hey, can I test out your student?
Oh, Jesus.
And I've had that. My teacher's like, yeah, Byron, okay, go ahead. What are you going to do? I'll do Tuisho. I'm like, my teacher's like, we don't do Tuisho.
Yeah.
He's like, no, we'll just do this. And he had this whole set of prerequisites and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remembered, I grabbed his arm and did whatever he wanted, and I just went, whack! And his arm came out, and it was out of his shoulder. I was like,
that's it.
And he left.
the same guy I mentioned, the one who was in the video with Robert J. He came back one day because he kind of comes back and he looks down. He sits around the corner and he watches. Cause I'm the Goren who has become Shu's favorited student now. Because like you stick around and you train.
Hard. Just train hard.
Your goal isn't to become like the most popular person in Beijing.
No,
it's just to train hard and represent your teacher.
You
know, like and represent the system and everything. So he comes back and looks around, and a bunch of the Chinese guys were having trouble doing some of the Shuaifa that we were doing. And it was very quick, like Kuai Jiao, and it's not a lot of, it's not, he's got some, like, Shuai Jiao jacket techniques, but a lot of it is, like, we would call it today, like, no-gi type stuff, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of it's like that, and, because they didn't train with jackets, or at least Shu school didn't. It was just, whatever you were wearing, and so, but I really like the jacket idea, but they weren't in this case. So he was like, and he was watching, kept giving me tips, and they were like, it's not working. And he goes, can I try it? And I was like, sure. And he tried to do it, it wouldn't work. And he goes, okay, you do it. Wham! Before you knew it, his feet were up in the air and his head hit the ground on the side of his neck. He gets up, he brushes himself off, he looks at me and says, oh, shit.
It does work.
And he walks away, and she, like, grins at me. He's like, and, like, winks at me, and, the guy, like, runs out, oh, shit, okay,
well, sure. I an appointment.
I'm gonna go now, I'll be the first one to go.
You're like, bye.
Okay. Yeah, bye-bye.
He gave me a call once from Beijing.
Oh, that's right.
He's like, oh, bro, there's this dude coming your way, like, can you, like...
Yeah.
Can you, like, he wants to have a... What did he say again? He was like...
He wanted to have a personal class to see how good Feng's system was.
Yeah.
And then he also didn't believe that the Shu stuff could really work because he had never seen... Mind you, this guy's a foreigner, lived in Beijing for a while. He had never met Shu.
Yeah.
He had only seen his stuff online because he had never personally met anybody who had ever studied with Shu was ever any good. He was questionable about how good Shu was, but then this was also a guy who had lived in the South who thought that training Taiji.
When was this?
This was like three years ago.
3 years ago. Okay.
So he went out to China because first thing
he went out to Japan.
Japan. He was living in China. His Chinese was excellent. His Chinese was like excellent.
Okay.
But so we went out.
And he doubted Feng.
He doubted Feng. His teacher had studied with.
Does he have eyes?
Yeah,
his teacher said Feng was fake.
Because there's a bunch of those Shanghai guys act like Feng's fake because he left, and you can talk a bunch of shit.
He's teaching the Japanese.
Peiqi wrong, and Peiqi was Peiqi wrong, and this and that, So we had gone out to Zhonghe Youhairen. Like they have this awesome Tang Dynasty garden. For anybody who ever comes to Beijing, I know it sounds weird. Go to that hospital. And
so it's the China-Japan Friendship
Hospital.
Yeah,
go to this Tang Dynasty garden they have in the middle.
I had x-rays there when I tore my AC joint.
Oh,
sparring.
you did? Have you seen the Tang Dynasty garden they have in the middle?
I don't think so.
It's weird. You're like in Beijing and suddenly everything is
usually
quiet.
I'm there in the middle of the night because I've broken something.
Yeah, it's true.
No time for garden view.
Yeah, he lives right next to
I live right next to it. So like you can literally walk right up the block and right there. And so he was like, "Oh, we went out for a beer one night. We went over there, and they have this like it's like a tea shop, but it's never open. You know how that is. You go to these parks, say, "Oh, we got this beautiful tea shop." Oh, look, it's not open. I've been living here for 4 years. It's never been open. You know, like ever, but it's beautiful. So, but they have this Tang Dynasty garden with fish. So off of one side is like this big 4-foot drop into a pond, and the other side is this glass doors with like woodwork. And so he's like, "Oh, let me show you this thing. You know, in Bagua, you should really."
So this guy,
he's
and
like,
you met him there.
He's because he was like, "I'll bring you some beers." Well, you know, because we were going to school right across the street at Beijing at the time, the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine, and we were sitting there talking and drinking some beers because he wanted to show. I'd never been to the garden before, and he showed it to me. And so he's like, "Oh yeah, you know, we can do some push hands. And, yo, let me teach you this thing that I learned in Bagua. You know, I don't know if you know it or not, but it's really good information. It doesn't mess up your knees. Always make sure to rub your knees and your ankles together." And I was like, "Thanks, brah." You know, like when you walk, make sure your ankles and knees rub. And I was like, 101. Thank you. You know, like
you mean don't open your crotch?
You know, exactly.
Have your knee collapsing?
You know, and I was like, "Oh." So he was like, "You know, I don't know." And so I showed him some stuff from shoe stuff, and he's like, "Well, I don't know about this." I was like, "All right, come at me." So he comes at me, and I hit him in the neck, and I go to throw him by sweeping his leg, his knee out from under and push.
One of those.
But the problem is, there's the glass doors from the tea shop right behind him. So as I push him down, I grab him. He's so drunk, he doesn't realize what happened. And I pick him back up, and I sit him up. So I don't know, man. I don't know if that. I was like, Jesus Christ. All right, you know what? I can't throw him into the pond. I can't throw him.
You should have.
I should have. So I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. But he's like, "Yo, I want to go to Japan. I want to talk to Simon. You know, but I don't know about that Feng Zhengbao stuff." I was like, you don't know about a lot of stuff. But the nice thing is Simon's got a park with a dirt, so you can slam anybody, right? Like, so I was like, "Simon, meet this dude." And the dude paid Simon to whoop his ass. So like he paid Simon a fee to give him a. He's like, "I don't want to learn anything about shoe stuff, right?" That's why he showed up. Like,
did he believe afterwards?
Oh yeah. He came back. He's like, "Yo, Simon's badass. I would never want to fuck with him, man. Yo, he's like one of like 5 dudes who whoop my ass." I'm like, "One of 5 dudes?" You know, like, "1 of 5 dudes?" I was like, "Brah, shut the fuck up." You know, like I was like, "Your ass almost went through a glass fucking door here, but you were too drunk to even realize what happened." Simon knocked him out in midair with a shoe technique and let him wake up believing it was a Feng technique. You know, like that's.
He was just like, he's like, "Oh, good, right, okay, let's go. I'm gonna go." I'm like, "Okay." So he just comes barreling in. And just slip it right on the BAM! It is the fucking dude.
You use gun, right? You use gun, like this. And he hit him right here. And the dude he told me when he came back, he goes, "I don't remember hitting the ground." And then I woke up on the ground. "Yo, that dude's badass." I was like, "That's called being knocked out, motherfucker." Like, he's like, "Oh, yeah. But I was just like, and he's like, "Yo, give Simon this book about Peiqi Rong." It was like all in Chinese. So I give it to Simon. Simon's like, "Whatever." You know, he's like, "Fucking, like." But yeah, and that's another problem in Chinese martial arts. I understand everybody's got differences, and it's in a lot of martial arts. But I think one of the things right now is at least there needs to be a core group, and this is another reason for starting this association. There needs to be a core group of people that get together and work on things, and not fuck the rest of the world, but fuck the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Like at the same time.
And the door's got to be open and be like be open in like a positive way. Like not everybody has to be, you know, a badass, or, you know what I mean? Like it's just somewhere where people can get their side of the story across and like try and
also develop something.
Try and get some like unity and some harmony, and you know, because like I mean, I don't even go on the forums and stuff like that anymore because there's just so much fucking bitching, bro. Like I just
it's like pointless.
I just go to the park.
Do your training,
right? Yeah, and hang out with the
there's not enough hours in the day for that.
Nah, not at all. So. You know, and it's really, that's the sad thing is that because like, you know, if you look at other arts and we're looking at like the area of like, you know, how can we bring Kung Fu back to that where it's got that all round respectability. It's like, you know, a lot of other arts, like of course there are beefs and stuff like that, but generally speaking there's a lot of getting on and a lot of like cross training and a lot of like, you know what I mean, and a lot of like building relationships with different camps and all that sort of stuff. And I think sometimes in Chinese martial arts, like we can be like our own worst enemy.
Yeah,
you
for
know
sure.
What I mean?
Yeah,
for
like,
sure.
Like
for
because
sure.
nobody wants to listen to what anybody else has got to say.
They're like feral cats.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's hissing at everybody else.
And if your teacher could fight, or if Mark's teacher could fight, or if my teacher could fight, does that really matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, between us three. And what we're doing and what we're creating, and does that really mean that if such and such a teacher couldn't fight, does that make everything they learned like invalid? No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so. But it's that
fighting
constant,
changes.
It's that constant bitching and that constant bickering and that constant bullshit that doesn't get anybody anywhere. And from people from the outside who look at it, it just looks like a fucking joke.
We talked about this. We talked about this when we did your very first podcast, like the one that we said. I was saying before, fighting is a circle. We're not developing new techniques, really. Yeah. We're just traveling the wheel of Dharma. You know what I mean? And oh look,
we're back here again.
We're back here again. Look at when the UFC came out and the domination, because most people who fought in the UFC weren't ground sufficient, and most of the Greco-Roman doesn't work on finishing techniques as much as it does submission techniques, and so a lot of them weren't. In fact, any time in Greco-Roman, I used to wrestle Greco-Roman when I was in third grade, when I was in elementary school. Anytime you get into a position of being able to choke a person out, they break it up. So they never develop past that point. So when you get to the submission, or they did, when you wrestle in that area, when you wrestle in those school style wrestling, then when you go to BJJ, they developed a lot of submission on the ground techniques that Greco-Roman didn't train. So then people have to train for that. And then they came in, they dominated for a while. Then from there, people started realizing, okay, you learn how to do, take down the fence. And now you've got the best of the world. People like George St. Pierre, he just punches you in the face and takes you down, throws some kicks and but granted, he might be good in all these aspects, but he figures out the weaknesses of different things and he exploits them. And now today, if you watch most UFC, a lot of it's stand up again. We're back to that same.
It's gone back to now. People having way more trouble trying to get
most grapplers don't.
And
and
honestly, the striking side of MMA, there's so much that can still come.
Oh, we were talking about this. One of the biggest emptinesses, I think, where Kung Fu can come in big, and I know people will laugh, is that middle trapping range. What do you do in close to strike?
The stand-up grapple game.
Yeah, stand-up grapple game. And I think one of the people who does it, one of the people who does it best, Tony Ferguson.
Well, he has a Wing Chun background.
He's a Wing Chun background. That guy's a beast at that, man. Even John Jones. Jones
for sure he does.
John Jones, Tony Ferguson, these two guys are phenomenal. And as much as I'm not a fan of Conor McGregor's attitude, his body mechanics are very much Kung Fu based. You know what I mean? And he did a lot of traditional stuff.
That's the other thing. If we could just break this, and that's why, you guys know I went to see Zhang Weili, and the point of me talking to her was about Chinese martial arts, her background in Chinese martial arts, in MMA, and what does she think, and also China's future in MMA. Because we just need that icebreaker. I think she's an icebreaker for China.
I think so.
So if we can get more guys saying, hey man, I can do that too. And you get guys that are coming out of a strong traditional background, or they're crossing, or they've got this base and they go into MMA and they start saying, hey, I'm going to start using these techniques that nobody's using.
We're working on that a little bit. Yeah. We want to bring up
because there's so much there that could be used.
We've got some professional fighters in Japan who want to work with us to create a school, and this is also part of the idea of the Tong, that not only if you look at Zhang Wei, I don't know much about what's going on in her school, but from what I see on the outside, they do a lot of Chinese cultural aspects, from the Shuaijiao to the.
Well, that's her more.
That's her more. Yeah, she's pushing. She's pushing that, right? She's and I really want to connect with her, because I think I would benefit. Obviously, I'm not going to say, she'll benefit from knowing me, but I think our goals are similar, right? And I really respect. Not only that, they have a goddamn tea table. You know what I mean? In their fucking gym. That's they're pushing these traditional aspects. We have guys. Guy wants to get together.
There's two guys in that gym. Her, she's one, and Wu Haotian. He's a male professional MMA fighter. He comes from a 7 or 8 year Yi Chuan background.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Oh, but I've had with my friend Guy. Dude, don't get me wrong. I've been tapped out a million times by him on the ground and dumped and slammed and thrown and across the. But one thing that he told me one night when we were having a drink was he was like, dude, the elbow techniques. The Bagua elbow techniques that I learned from you are the best elbow techniques I've ever learned. Yeah. And I use them all the time, and I've taught everybody in my gym.
We were talking today. Those kicking techniques from Chinese Kung Fu are by and far the most diverse kicking techniques you'll ever.
Yeah.
When you study Thai boxing, they have great kicking techniques, but they're very limited. You know, Kyokushin is much more technical than Thai boxing, and they're good. But compared to like the Sanda shit that you can see, especially in some of these books and things that came out, like we've got one I got for 72 Shaolin kicking techniques, phenomenal book. And like
I did that book with my partners. We did like every single technique in that book. Went through and trained them together, and man, that shit.
So it's just a matter of the right person with the right knowledge
exactly.
and the right
doing
group,
it at the right time,
exactly.
and it'll come out.
It'll come out.
And,
that's
sometimes I feel that sometimes there's like I've had situations where I've trained with friends of friends and stuff like that, and have come in and they've not known that you're a Bagua dude or a so-called Kung Fu dude anyway, and they're like, oh man, that shit is fucking dope. And then afterwards you're like, oh, you know, when you're having dinner together or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, that's Kung Fu. That's Kung Fu. And they're like, oh.
I had that happen a couple times.
Yeah,
there was a BJJ school I went to, and this guy was
and
like,
it's not saying that it's just the be all and end all, but what I'm saying is that it's not
bullshit.
invalid.
Yeah, it's not invalid.
No, we're not saying. I'm not trying to say that Chinese martial arts is the be all and end all. What I'm trying to say is that the be all and end all does have Chinese martial arts.
Exactly. That's the one.
Yeah, that's
exactly it.
I remember this one time.
I make a T-shirt out of that.
Yeah, exactly. There was this one school I remember going to. They were cool. We used to go. I used to do a little bit of BJJ with a friend of mine, drag me along with him to go do some stuff. Not like I wasn't kicking and screaming or anything, but he was like, "Dude, I want somebody to go with me. I don't want to go alone." You know, because sometimes going to gyms can be intimidating. You know, you don't know anybody, and I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And I jumped right in, and he was like, "Jesus Christ, bro! Like, do you do this stuff?" And I was like, "No." And I don't do BJJ. I haven't grappled in many years. But practicing the Bagua and the way that I've learned it from Xu, a lot of it is very submissive. You know, submissive in the same of submissions, you know, and things like that. I was tapping out purple and blue belts, you know, and he was like, and even the black belt who ran the school was like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? And he kept telling people, like, this guy is strong and he's got really unorthodox like techniques. Like, it's good to have him in our school. Yeah. And I remember one of the guys, they were doing knee to belly stuff, you know, passing the knee to belly, changing side controls and I was doing it too, and they put a lot of pressure on it. And I was like, what if we used this technique from Bagua? I did a little Fali, and the guy jumped. I remember we were doing this, and he's trying to get real rough with me. And I was like, all right. So when it was my turn, I flipped him, and I did knee to belly. It was like a rolling session, and I gave him a little oomph, and he was like, get off! And he ran to the bathroom, and he puked. And he came back out, and he was like, what the fuck was that? And I looked at him, and I grinned. I was like, oh, it's just a little bit of Tai Chi. And he's like, fuck that was not Tai Chi. And the black belt walks by and goes, I hear Tai Chi's good stuff. Hey, Mitch, you ever think about practicing Tai Chi? And he likes to do, fuck you, man. Like, you know, but like, it's starting to get back. And like, as much as like people used to rag on it before, people are starting to say, no, there's some legitimacy there.
There's a problem. I mean, we've just got, and maybe we can end with this, but we've got a problem in Chinese martial arts that the people that have been coming out, especially the last 15, 20 years, representing Chinese martial arts, especially in a commercial environment, are the wrong people.
Yes, the wrong people.
That's what we're sitting with.
There's no reason to not go out and prove them wrong, but here's the other thing I will say. We've talked about this a lot. When you do that, use your platform to go and point to people who are good. Though I don't mind Xu Xiaodong wrecking people, but I will say this. The only thing I didn't see personally enough of was him saying, this is bullshit, this is real. I would have really liked to see him point more publicly to be like, this is bullshit, this is real. Because then what happens, you create a vacuum, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying what he did was wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm not one to comment. I'm not Chinese. That's a Chinese problem, right? Yeah. But with us, we're fighters. We do things. Let's also point to the good stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're here today. You're pointing to us, we're pointing to you. You know what I mean? Like, this is the real shit. This isn't like, hey, you know, this came from Opera in India, and let's spin on fiery wheels, and that crazy guy online who talks stuff like that. Like, you know, like it's not that bullshit. Like, obviously, he would get laid the fuck out. Like, and he would probably get speared through by this guy hanging on your wall right here if he ever came up. But I want us to also point towards that. You know, like, these guys are good. That way we can get referrals. We have students, go see Byron in Australia or Japan or wherever you are, Beijing or wherever you are. I want you to go. He's going to teach you good stuff, you know. And then you start to create a network, and then it gets more and more and more. I personally don't know. Maybe Xu did that, but I just didn't see it. You know probably better than I did.
And instead of pushing like other arts, which is what I've really tried to do in Japan, instead of like pushing other arts away and having this chest out, us against them, find the right people and bring them in.
Yes,
you know, and learn from them and get I have not seen anywhere like a Southern Mantis dude a Wing Chun dude, a boxer,
Yeah.
an MMA guy, a
Everyone.
Bagua dude, and a Taiji dude, like hanging out, like regularly, training like chilling, like learning from each other, like
legitimately fighting and preparing for pro fights.
So
you know.
So what we're trying to aim at is not the beginning of a bad joke, but we want it to sound like a Wing Chun guy, a Bagua guy, and a Southern man.
Exactly. Like I mean, and that's another thing about some of these forums. You know why I'm not on. I don't comment a lot on them anymore. I avoid them. You know, forums are a lot of times a waste of time. And to take, you want to take a professional fighter's advice. Jorge Masvidal in a recent interview, he's like, I barely use my phone. I'm not online. I don't watch TV. Like, if you want to get good at something, stay away from.
But there's also the other side. I mean, like a lot of those forums and in today's environment, it's all about everyone trying to build their brand for financial reasons.
Yeah.
They can
so
do
that's
that.
why.
Yeah,
they can do that. But that's why we have so much shit.
Yeah.
That's why we have all of this.
Well, they got a tub of Vaseline out and they're sitting next to the
or that, which is only 80%.
Yeah, right. And like we recently saw another one where like a guy was trying to make a brand for himself and he was drunk online, trying to teach fucking self-defense on his wife to the masses.
Really?
And he was wasted, or he seemed wasted and high. And it was like, stop it. Put down the camera. Step away. You know? Don't do these things, man. Like, don't do these things. Like, but I think that's, again, us connecting and getting better and doing things like this and having a group. We all support each other. You know? And it's not going to just stop there. You know, how many other business opportunities, life opportunities happen when you have that connection?
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
outside of martial arts.
that's what Chinese culture is based on.
Yeah.
Man.
That's what we talk about. We talk about the monkey mind. You know, Dan always talks about that. You know, you're only good at. I have so many teachers who are only good at one thing, and anything out, and they become so obsessed with it, they go fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Because they have no outlet. That's why we always talk about having another. Don't be just good at martial arts. Study cooking, study medicine, study tea, study IT work on a computer.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
To balance it.
Well, Musashi said the same thing.
Musashi's,
Musashi said exactly the
same thing.
He leaves in Musashi's ward.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Same.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that was good. You got any drink there left? So let's do this because we're gonna finish this with a cheers.
It sounds good.
Good to have you guys here.
Thanks
for
having us.
coming. It was a good conversation.
It was awesome. Thanks, man.
Cheers.